I thought what I would do was to swap the program around a little bit. We were going to start off with welcome and opening remarks. But I think what we'll do is we'll kick straight into the meat of the workshop by asking Dr. Chakravarti to come up and tell us a little bit about what government is doing. Thank you, Ashok. Oh, I've got to give you this. Oh, and you should stand. Yeah.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, MLA, for inviting me again. I'm not going to speak for too long. Just give you an overview of generally what's happening in government and the direction in various areas, and leave a little more time for Q&A. If you have any questions about what's going on the economic front, please feel free to ask. Happy to answer the questions. So I think the first thing that I would like that I was invited to talk about is the government's recent initiative in the area of ease of doing business. This initiative was started about 5 years ago with support from the World Bank. So it was something that was being done internationally. And we started the process here in Zimbabwe, and we were making some progress. It was led by the Office of the President. Unfortunately, the whole methodology was called into question, and maybe the bankers can give us more information, but basically they abandoned that whole initiative at that time. So the initiative here in Zimbabwe also collapsed. We did make some progress, but not much. Anyhow, more recently, it has again come into the policy arena. And the primary reason why the question of ease of doing business has come to the fore is that to be able to achieve the higher levels of middle income by 2030 or thereabouts, we need higher rates of growth in the Zimbabwean economy. We haven't been doing too badly. We've been doing around 5% per annum in the last couple of years, which is pretty good, even when you compare regionally. But even that is not good enough to be able to achieve the Vision 2030 targets, which require growth rates of perhaps 7% plus. Now, the problem that we face there is that given our situation that we have very little recourse to international capital markets, and we certainly do not have any access to the international financial institutions. Because of our arrears to them, we owe the World Bank and the European Investment Bank and the African Development Bank over $2 billion. And it's part of their statutes that they cannot lend to anybody who is in arrears. It has nothing to do with sanctions. So we can't get any money from them, period, until some good person gives us $2 billion, which we can give to them and do a book transfer, and maybe then they'll open up their coffers up to us. So that's not a viable option. Sanctions do make a difference in terms of international capital markets, because any international bank or private organization that wishes to lend to Zimbabwe, immediately the word Zimbabwe, when it comes up, a red flag comes up, against any credit consideration. So it's virtually impossible for us to access international capital markets, which basically means for the time being, in terms of resource flow, we are alone. So how do we get to 7%, let's say, from where we are at 5%? So anyone who's done economics that I used to teach at UZ in the first year, we tell them that growth rates are a composition of investment levels and productivity. In fact, productivity is far more important than the level of investment. So what it means is that we have to increase the productivity of domestic resources, domestic investment, and generally of the economy. If we do that, then we will be able to reach higher rates of growth with similar investment levels that we have. Now, in terms of domestic resource mobilization, it's a difficult situation because our tax levels are already quite high. So there's not much scope for additional taxation, number one. And secondly, 60 to 70% of the economy is informalized, which means that the burden of taxation falls on that 35% formal sector, which is bad. And it results in a high incidence on the formal sector, which by itself is a disincentive to invest. So the informal sector is the only source of additional resources to government for investment, but they are very difficult to tax. As you know, IMTT was an experiment which was put in about 4 years ago. The idea behind it was that people transact on the phone and digitally, etc. And perhaps IMTT will help us to generate resources from the informal sector. In practice, not really happen. The burden of IMTT, of course, we have had contribution from the informal sector, but the burden of IMTT has primarily fallen again on the formal sector. So it's an additional burden. So that is an issue, and you've probably been following the latest ZANU-PF conference. They also had a resolution suggesting that the 2% IMGT should be abolished. So let's see how it goes. The budget is coming up in November. Let's see what we can do. Anyhow, so productivity, that's the point I'm trying to make. So to increase productivity, you have to have a good enabling environment for investment, which attracts investment, which enables them to generate a good profit, and thereby also by generating income and profits, also create a situation where the total taxation, the total resources that the government gets from taxation will increase, not from higher levels of taxation, but from increased gross sales and gross profits of enterprises. So that's where ease of doing business comes in. The government has realized and did many years ago, but we've retaken the initiative, which is that Zimbabwe is a highly overregulated economy, and that is the generally accepted fact. And it's overregulated in two ways. It's overregulated in terms of the number of processes that a private individual or a company or a corporate has to follow to get where they want to get to in a particular area. And it's overregulated in a second way in terms of very high regulatory fees that the regulators charge. Now, since we are on that subject, I just want to give clarification on one item before we move on. These regulators, whoever they are, whether they are the city councils, whether it's EMA, DINWA, whatever it is, INARA, etc., they receive fees from their regulation. None of that comes into the fiscus of the government of Zimbabwe. Let's be very clear about that. None of it. So there is this impression that somehow the government is increasing all these regulatory fees to get more money. We in the Ministry of Finance, in our Central Revenue Fund, get nothing from those regulatory fees. So we are on your side, and we would like to reduce those regulatory. Of course, if they gave it to us, well, maybe we would think differently, but they don't. Anyhow, so that's what the ease of doing business is all about. Basically increasing the productivity of investment and addressing two major issues. One is the number of processes, the time taken, which is related to that, and the high levels of regulatory charges and fees. So that initiative, and that's what I'm here to talk about, and otherwise we can discuss other things. So initially we received support from the World Bank to do one experimental pilot sector, and that was the livestock sector. And in the livestock sector, we looked at, say, various subsectors. We looked at the cattle, farming. We looked at abattoirs. We looked at milk processing and dairy farming. And we also looked at the stock feed industry, because that is a major input into these areas. So that exercise was started sometime at the end of last year. It has been completed. The World Bank started the process, but we have now taken it over, and effectively we are doing it ourselves. They provided us with the advice and the methodology, but the government is fully engaged in doing it. We have a joint committee led by the Office of the President and the Ministry of Finance, and I'm a member of that committee. It is led by the Chief Secretary in the Office of the President, so that gives you an idea of the importance that it's being given. So in the livestock, I'll just talk about the livestock sector. I won't give you the details. They've already been released in the press and they are accessible. If anyone wants it, I can send it to Michael and he can circulate it. So in these four subsectors within the livestock subsector, basically there was a standard matrix that was developed by the World Bank and we amended it. And what that was done is that you identified the particular regulation and what it implied, what were the fees, and whether it was justified or not. So we went through that process, we collected all the information, and then we had, I don't know, they had a couple of stakeholder workshops. I have no idea if any of you attended them, but these were all towards the end of last year, early this year. And we received stakeholder confirmation on those matrices. There are about over 110 measures just in this livestock subsector which have been looked at. And then what happened was that after there was a stakeholder consultation and validation, we then had a discussion chaired by ourselves, Ministry of Finance and the Office of the President, in which we invited all the MDAs, that's the ministries, departments, and authorities, to come and say, this is what we have identified, and this is what has been validated by stakeholders who are directly involved in the production activities identified. Now, what do you say about it? And of course, all the MDAs and the regulators objected. But since the government was determined, and this was actually one of the guidances that His Excellency the President had given in the first cabinet meeting this year, that he wanted this to move ahead. So we said, well, nothing doing unless there is serious justification for the objections that you are making. We are not going to accept any of your objections. You've taken a very hard line. So those 100 odd measures which relate to processes, and I'll give you one or two examples, and levels were then consolidated, again reviewed by our committee, and they were submitted to cabinet about, I think, around 3 months ago by my minister. My minister has been given the lead on this matter to take it forward, and they were then approved by cabinet. So all that has been approved. Now comes the difficult process, more difficult process of translating what has been agreed as policy into law. Because the way that the law is structured in Zimbabwe, all acts and statutory instruments are actually governed by specific ministries. So what this means is that although it has been approved by cabinet, let's say in the case of livestock, there were 8 MDAs involved. Let's say, let's say, or the generator, yeah. Let's say it's the Ministry of Environment. In the case of one regulation, so I'll give you one regulation, for instance, that we scrapped. As you know, Emma had introduced a generator license some time ago, which they required. I think it was about $80 to $800, depending on the site. So we took a view about this and we said that, look here, it is the role of government and the public sector and the private sector, to the extent that they support the energy sector, to provide power to the country. Now, if there isn't if there's inadequate power, there are power cuts, then you know, what do people do? You put up solar or you have generators. So you can't then come back and say, well, we can't supply you power. You put up a generator and then we come back to you and we charge you, expect you to have a license, and there'll be a fee on that. So things like that have been scrapped. The generator license has been abolished. I'm just giving you one of the 100 odd measures that we have already been decided upon. Now, the problem here is that to scrap that, although it has been approved by the cabinet, it now has to be changed in the statutory instrument that Emma initially used to bring about that regulation and fee. So Emma has to, well, Ministry of Environment has to do it. So we are now in that process. We have got those 100 odd measures in the livestock sector. They have been, we have prepared the documentation. We have consulted the Attorney General. got their opinion, and all these will be sent to each one of the individual ministries who are responsible to amend the statutory instruments which govern these particular regulations. So we are in that process. They have no option but to do it because this has been approved. So the way forward now is we are in the stage where the Chief Secretary will send them a guidance indicating, let's say, Ministry of Environment or Ministry of Agriculture or whatever it is, that these are the regulations in this particular livestock subsector. This is what has been agreed and approved by government. Currently, Emma, you have a generator license. It's been agreed that it be abolished scrap. So you may expunge it from the Act or from the regulation. That directive will be given to the ministry concerned, and they will be expected to immediately take action to amend the statutory instrument governing that. So it's a process. It's a bureaucratic process. There's nothing we can do about it. So it will only become law when the statutory instrument is amended, but we are on it. There is no chance of resistance, I can assure you, because if the ministry concerned drags its feet, we are thinking of giving them 7 days to do it. And if they do not do it, then we will instruct the Attorney General to do it directly. So all that is under control. The process is under control. Okay. So this has now been extended to others. There are 12 sectors of the economy, and we are going to tackle all of them. The other two sectors which are very advanced are tourism and transport. They have already been reviewed. We've had the stakeholder consultations. We know what we want to do. And they're about, in transport, there are about 150 measures. Tourism around 100. To give you an example, in tourism, kinds of things that are happening currently. Sorry, tell me when to stop because I can go on the whole day. All right, so, but I'll try and keep it short. In the case of tourism, to give you an example, a large hotel with a TV was expected to have a TV license for each TV in each room. That has been abolished. Okay? That's just an example. What is happening now is a slab system by which they will, that BC will charge a particular fee for maybe one, I can't remember exactly, there's too much of this in my head. From 1 to 10 will be a certain fee, 10 to 50 another fixed fee, etc., etc. So it's a slab basis. So this is how tourism and transport have been done, but we are still struggling with redefining this information into a legal format, which can then go back to the MDAs, and they will be expected again to do another set of statutory amendments for transport and tourism. The fourth sector we're doing is retail. That is almost complete as well. And from retail, we'll be going to energy. Then we'll also be looking at services, all services. I don't think we're going to be very popular with the lawyers and doctors and conveyancers, etc., but we're going to do it. You know, that's the way to go. So this is broad-based. Oh, the manufacturing sector is also being done. That is being done in conjunction with the World Bank and the CZI. They have a team. It's too complex. There are too many subsectors, so we can't cope with it. We've given it to them. They're working on it. So that will take some time. So as you can see, this is wide-ranging. It's going to cover the whole economy. The delay, as I said, is not so much in deciding that we want to do it. That's very easy. We know what we want. We've got stakeholder consultation, and cabinet approves everything we say. But the problem is translating the cabinet decision into law. That's where the delay is. We'll do our best. So that's what the ease of doing business is all about. In terms of the agricultural sector, we've already done livestock. But there's the rest of the agricultural sector, which includes crop production and horticulture, of course. On that one, the exercise is currently ongoing. It is being, the World Bank is assisting the Ministry of Agriculture. So if any of you have any interventions that you wish to, or any agriculture related activity, you're most welcome to do so. Put it together as a submission. I think the person concerned is, you can give them the email. It's Senidu, who is coordinating it from the bank side. Yeah, so it can all be submitted to her and copies can be sent to us. But they are the ones who are coordinating it. They're doing the first cut of consolidating all the information, and then our committee will look at it. So that's basically in terms of we want to have horticulture, the same way we did livestock, we'd like to have a separate subsector review of horticulture as well. So that's basically what's happening. It's a continuing exercise, and we're trying to do our best. There are not many people working on it, but we will do what we can. The bank is assisting us, so we're highly appreciative of that. And also we have good support from stakeholder associations. So in the case of transport, we received very good support from the Transport Operators Association. In the case of retail, we received very good support from the Confederation of Zimbabwe Retailers, Mutashu and Co. And likewise, CZI is working very closely on manufacturing sector. So that's basically what it is in terms of ease of doing business. And we are hoping that we're trying to go as fast as possible, that we can complete this exercise by the decision-making side approval by cabinet by the end of this year. But the process of then putting it into law is going to be slow. We will do our best. That will take some time. So that's what ease of doing business is all about. The government is very serious about it. I'll give you another example from the retail sector. If you take Pick n Pay or Spar or any one of those retailers, so the city of Harare and other city councils ask them to get a license for each activity that they do. So they need a butchery license. Sorry, there's so many. They need a license to sell bread. They need another one to do all these things. So the average retailer is confronted by about 8 or 9 separate licenses. So what we have done is we called in the city council, we called in the Ministry of Local Government, and we said, what's this all about and what's the logic of it? And of course, there's no logic in it. So there was no answer. So we said, right, finished, out. Now, from now onward, there will be one license. The only thing that we are going to negotiate with the city councils is that if the sum total of all those licenses came to, let's say, 5,000, are we going to keep it at 5 for one license? Are we going to reduce it to 500? Or so that negotiation has happened because we have to also keep in mind that if we reduce it to $20, all the city councils would go broke. So we'd be happy to do that. But so the fee levels have been kept at something reasonable, which is acceptable to the regulator concerned. But if something is unreasonable, we have tried our best to take the guillotine and do what is most rational and appropriate to do. So I think that's basically what I can tell you about ease of doing business. I would encourage you all, if you're not already participating in the horticulture sector review, to contact the World Bank. Not individually, that's too complicated, but if you can have some mechanism to consolidate the information and submit it to them, we will certainly have a look at it. We're happy to look at it and we will take it very seriously. So that's all I have to say about ease of doing business. If you have other questions, we can have another 5-10 minutes.
Thank you.
If you want to talk about dollarization or forex situation or whatever.
Questions or comments on Dr.
I have another 20 minutes, so.
All right, I'll go with Linda. So Tony will be passing around the microphone so our online people can.
Morning, Prof. Linda Nielsen from the Horticultural Development Council. So we are the mechanism for coordinating the ease of doing business submission. We were given the deadline by the Ministry of Finance, through our Ministry of Agriculture, 10 a.m. on the 18th of August. It was quite tight. We were given one weekend in which to submit. So our 53 items that are creating the cost of, or the increased cost of production in Zimbabwe have been submitted directly. I'll talk to Esther about putting that through the rules. So my question is, what is the mechanism that government uses to prioritize the sectors that are being reviewed on ease of doing business? I'm coming from a heavily regulated and heavily audited sector. So besides the 53 regulatory bodies that we deal with, we also have up to eight global gaps, rainforest alliance, etc. audits in order to meet the market, to get to the market. And once we're at the market, we're up against a competitive environment that doesn't have the same operating environment that we do. I think my request is a little bit of speed on the review mechanism, and how we could work with government in ensuring that we get that.
Well, as I said, I mean, there are two areas. One is generally relating to taxation and incentives. That is not part of the ease of doing business exercise. On that one, the general system that we've had in place is to receive representations prior to the budget. And we either accept, reject, or amend, or whatever it is. So you're open to make, the budget is coming up. This is a very appropriate time to make any representations that you have relating to proposals to the minister. And we'll be happy to look at it. In terms of the priority, I can't say. I mean, we've been given that whole economy to deal with, the 12 sectors. Now, agriculture has fallen behind, not because we started with agriculture, but I won't go into that. But they've been very slow in putting together the standard matrix, the standard information, as developed the methodology, as developed by the World Bank, in which we have amended. So the delay has come from their side. So my suggestion would be, there's no reason this exercise is led by the Office of the President. I know it is the Ministry of Agriculture, which is supposed to be your, responsible line ministry, but nothing is strong. Nobody is asked you to submit it through them. Just forget about them. Forget about them. And if anyone objects, you can use my name and say, I. So you're not responsible. So you are welcome to submit your proposals. You're welcome to submit your proposals directly to the World Bank. If you have any which are ready and are ready to go.
Thank you.
And you can just copy us. You can copy me. He has my email. Or you can put in your letter where I have advised you to do so. So you're not responsible and you're not breaking the line of authority. So if they have any issue, they can come to me, which they never will. Okay. So please go ahead. I mean, agriculture was number 1 and now they're number 6 or number 7. So they've been so slow.
Yes.
Thanks very much. I've been asked several questions.
Sorry, my hearing aid is a bit faulty. You'll have to reach out on it.
Okay. I've been asked several questions that I've not been able to maybe answer.
Yeah.
Partly the bank is working with the ministry, OPC, etc.
Yeah.
So one of the questions has been, if these levies have been removed, what plan has government made for those entities that were charging these fees? And I say it because we're doing an agriculture public expenditure review so that we can repurpose agriculture financing to research and development, etc. So I've not been able to answer people that, so I thought this would be an opportune moment maybe to let us know.
But don't quote me. Basically, my thinking is sink or swim. So the whole point is that if we accept that the First Republic had a certain philosophy, which is not unusual in developing countries. I mean, so many developing countries have a state-led approach. And that's not the philosophy of the Second Republic. We believe that the private sector is the end of the world. Fundamentally different. So, in that environment, since independence till 2017 or 2019, you had the growth of all this regulatory framework. We're trying to dismantle it. Personally, I believe many of them should be closed down. But politically, that's difficult. So we are going to minimize their role. So if you look at the agricultural sector, I will not go into any details, you know it as well as I do. I think they're overextended. Too many licenses, too many permits. It's endless.
Let me
You know, you want to import something, you need a license. If you want to export something, you need a license. And it's completely unnecessary. So, as far as I'm concerned, okay, let's take the example of Alma. I will name it. Right? If we severely cut back on a lot of these, it's going to affect their income. But I think that's good. I think that they should shrink, they should reduce and focus on their core activities and stop doing all this kind of stuff. It's none of their business. We want to have a more free economy where the private sector can breathe and have the energy to be able to develop. So you should keep that in that context, take it into account when you do a PER, because this is the direction that we're going to do. And if they believe that they're going to sustain their existing budget, they can forget it. It's not going to happen. Their budgets are going to be severely restrained, no more buildings, maybe no more uniforms. Let's do what they're supposed to do. And if you can support us in that, in having a thrust in that direction, well, that would happen. Okay.
Thanks, Doc. I think, Ulasan?
Yeah.
Oh? Sorry, what's the order, Tony?
Sorry, we'll send each
Okay, and then we'll have to put a line under.
Thank you. My question, Prof, is on the process because you process after cabinet approval.
Yeah.
Because what needs to happen is that there has to be the law, right? So is there a provision that can sort of help to cover or protect the private sector during that period, while listing from the process from the cabinet approval to the law? Can't there be a provision or an embargo or a statutory instrument as well, so that at least some of those licenses, those fees can be supported until the law has been understood already in cabinet approval? Thank you.
Yeah, no, the straight answer to that is unfortunately not. We received legal opinion. What we would have liked to have done is actually use presidential powers to implement all these measures immediately. But we have been told that that is not legally possible for this purpose. So the only way that we can proceed, and we can't have an embargo, because if we could have done it, we would have done it. It's easier for us. Rather than running around after all these ministries, one instrument signed by the president, done. No headache for me. Also, the office secretary. But unfortunately, we can't do that. So we have to go through the rather tedious process of actually making the amendments. But we will expedite it. We are not going to, as I said, the delays have come more from the side of the stakeholders themselves. Agriculture, for instance, it's been 3 months. I haven't seen anything. So those who are progressing faster, we'll try and push them as fast as possible. You've got a good team working. So good luck. But unfortunately, there's no instant remedy. I wish there were.
Thank you.
It's 1 or 2 more.
I'm curious about the ministry's strategy to allow private sustainable finance to flow into the country. So Zimbabwe is a party to multiple multilateral environmental agreements. At the nexus of climate and biodiversity, of the bioeconomy, where assets under management were 3.2 trillion last year, they've doubled in the last 12 months. By 2030, we expect it to be a $30 trillion capital market. But private finance is struggling to come into countries such as Zimbabwe, like 3.3% of climate finance is coming to Africa because of the tracking and monitoring and reporting mechanisms. So what is the ministry doing to allow private sustainable finance to feel comfortable and happy?
Well, the environment sector has its own regulatory framework, which has been recently put in place. Now, I'm not an expert particularly in that, but our ministry is not really involved. If there were any fiscal incentives that were required, we would certainly consider that. But in terms of the structure that is in place, currently it's primarily guided by the act and the regulations that have been put in place. And I know that there are several stakeholders like Cicada and others who have been actively engaging the ministry particularly in terms of the the carbon credits, for instance. And they talk to us regularly. If they have problems, I meet them regularly. If they have problems, they come to us. But so far, they seem to have been quite happy with the 70-30 and the progress. It has been a bit slow, but then we need to know more explicitly if there are certain bottlenecks there. Because we are not experts in these areas. You've got to come and tell us that there is whatever 100 million or 1 billion or whatever it is out there, which is interested in coming in financing, green financing or carbon markets or whatever it is. These are the laws, these are the constraints which are preventing it from doing so. And we would be happy. Come and talk to me. And I'm happy to we can discuss it. We can put the matter up to the minister, and it can even go to cabinet. So we need to hear about all this stuff, but then we can consider. As I said, our goals are.
We've got one more question, Mrs. Sandy.
Sandy Roberts, Prof. Chakubati, thank you. I'm one of the input suppliers in the seed industry in Zimbabwe. So all that you're saying is great news for us in the private sector. However, I must admit, I'm probably one of your most skeptical. When you first presented, I think it was at the Christmas or the mid-year event. I can't remember when you presented it. You said within a matter of weeks, something's coming out. And then I saw the livestock, all the parameters that was being published. And I was like, wow, things are actually happening. So it's exciting to see that. But as you said, the implementation is the difficult part. And you might not be the most popular people in the corridors of government departments at the moment. But it is exciting, and I want to congratulate you that there is even a recognition amongst the government that enterprise and private sector is under huge pressure. We've been hemorrhaging for a long time. And when I look at the seed industry in particular, with very large public listed companies are almost on their knees. They're laying off workers. There's a lot of stuff that's going on within that sector. So would love to, obviously with World Bank, and I know the Seed Association has been very active and all that side of things, is that it needs speed because we are losing companies left, right, and center. So, but just say thank you and keep pushing.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you.
I'd just like to make one comment to that debate which is going. No questions on that, because we can spend the rest of the day. It's more interesting than you will. And that's the whole question of the de-dollarization and monocurrency. I just want to clarify certain misconceptions about it. So I'll just speak for 5 minutes and then that's that. So basically, we are in a dual currency situation in which we have the local currency, the ZiG, and we have the US dollar. And of course, the US dollar is dominant, are both concurrently usable in the economy. Now, if you look at the relative proportion in the banking system, what we call M3, that's money supply deposits, ZiG is about 20% of the total, and US dollar is about 80% of the total. That's all our deposits and etc. in the banking system. Now, the intention is that over time, we have 5 years, up to 2030, the ZiG should become the dominant currency. And there's very good reason for that, so I'm not going to go into it, because the country really cannot, develop properly or even have proper policies unless you have your own national currency. Now, one thing that the government has realized over the last several years, and that's why you find some measure of stability over the last 12 months, is that if we want to maintain stability of the exchange rate, then money supply is the key variable that affects the exchange rate. If you print money, which is what was happening in the past, then the exchange rate will fly, and if you print too much, you get hyperinflation. So I'm a member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank as well. So what we have been doing over the last 12 months, since April, more than that, 15 months since April last year, we've been keeping a very strict control on money supply, which means that there is no printing of money. I can assure you, unlike the past, the government is not printing any money. And that's the reason why you see relative stability in the ZiG US dollar exchange rate, both in terms of the interbank market and also in terms of the parallel exchange rate outside, which in most cases, Banks are selling at between 28 and 31. Parallel rate is maybe 33, 34, which is not too bad. So the intention of government is to move in the direction of a monocurrency. Now, that does not mean that all the US dollar in the economy, and that's what people say, is going to be converted into ZiG in 2030. That is not going to happen. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Okay? You can go to South Africa, you can go to Malawi, India, wherever. All these countries have FCAs. So all our savings, including my personal savings, I hold an FCA, you hold FCAs, companies hold FCAs. There is no intention whatsoever to convert FCAs into local currency. It's not going to happen. It's normal in a monocurrency situation as in South Africa or, as I said, anywhere else in Zambia or India, that you have your local currency is the dominant currency for local transactions. So yes, it is true that all goods and services within the domestic economy by 2030 or thereabout, you might find we want to extend it to 2032, but we'll see as it, how it goes by then. All local transactions will definitely be in the local currency, but there will be plenty of US dollars in the economy and they are not under threat. FCAs are not under threat. There are pensions. I'm working with IPEC. They have come. IPEC, for instance, most of the pension funds are holding their assets in US dollars. You can't convert those US dollars. They will remain in US dollars. They will probably make payouts to their pensioners still in US dollars once we have a monocurrency. But what it does mean is, supposing this is a good example, if I'm getting a pension of $1,000 from a pension fund into my FCA, I cannot use that to buy goods and services in the economy. As is standard in other countries, we'll have to convert that into local currency if you want to buy a cup of tea or a bottle of milk, or indeed buy a car. Okay, so there's a misconception of this mass conversion. Financial assets are not going to be converted. Full stop. We have VFX. There are lots of people holding shares in US dollars. We have pension funds. We have the FCAs. All this will continue to remain in the external currency. What is going to happen is that the dominance of local transactions will be in domestic currency. And there are many countries of the world where the local currency amounts to about 70-80%, 60-70% of transactions. We're quite happy with that. That is monocurrency. Certain proportion of US dollars continue, and who cares about that, as long as there's stability of the exchange rate. And our target at the moment in the central bank is currently, if you look at money supply, 20% of money supply is ZiG, 80% is US dollars. Our target for the end of 2026 is 30% ZiG, 70% US dollars, transaction-wise. So it's a gradual process, and I think we have an understanding. We understand the parameters which cause the problems, and government, the policymakers right up to the top, they understand all these issues now. And I think, well, they can always be mishatched. So let's not be, presenting a very rosy picture. But still, the point is we do have an understanding, and the intention is there to maintain the stability of the economy we've been seeing for the last 15 months, and to have this going forward in a gradual and in a sensible manner. So I just wanted to make this comment. Now, in terms of surrender, since Linda keeps right, and that's my last comment, you have to understand something about surrender. There are two things. Currently, surrender is 30% of export. It's not going to go up for the foreseeable future. It may come down to 25, but it's certainly not going to go under 25. And there's good reason for that. Two reasons. The first reason is that the central bank, the reason for that is that all of us hold US dollars, but none of us want to trade it, including me. And that's perfectly rational and reasonable. There's nothing wrong with that. So how are importers going to access FX if holders of FX are not interested in selling it in the market, right? So the only way is to have surrender. And that is something which is common all over the world in the developing world. Surrender ranges from 10% to 70-80%. So we got it at 25 or 30%. Now, out of that 30%, and that's my last point, 15% is resold by the central bank into the interbank market on a weekly basis. And the numbers are given. And that's the reason why you have stability of the exchange rate. The banks come to the interbank market with their uncovered foreign exchange positions, supported by documentation from importers or whatever else you want to do, your newspaper subscriptions or travel allowances or whatever. But 15% is resold back into the market. The other 15%, unfortunately, it comes to us at the Ministry of Finance, and we use it to support or to finance or to service our legacy debts. Something we inherited. We have the Afro-Exim Bank and many other legacy lenders. We have to service those debts. So we need the foreign exchange to service those debts. So we are servicing those debts, and the balance is sold back into the market. So surrender is not going to change. So let's not have representations asking for it to change. It won't. You can write it, no problem, but it won't change. Okay. Lots of other things can change, and we are certainly willing to consider all proposals that come from your sector. Thank you.
So Joe's going to leave us shortly. He's off to another meeting, but we really appreciate you coming.
I want you to listen for a few minutes. I guess if you say you want to.
I think you should stay for as long as you can.
Okay, I'll stay for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So for those who came a little bit later, we shuffled the program around a little bit. And we will now go into the welcome and opening remarks.
Sorry. Explain it.
We're privileged to have the ambassador of the Netherlands to Zimbabwe here, Dr. Bavay.
Yes.
Okay, nice to meet you. And she'll say a few words. This meeting is made possible by support from Netherlands, so we're very grateful to the Netherlands. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, apologies for being late, really. I'm having the packers and the movers over at my house. And they were 18 hours late delivering the container. I've actually stopped the loading in between in order to be here, so halfway. But a very, very good morning to all of you. Mangwanani. And I'm really, really sorry. A special welcome, I want to say, first of all, to the colleagues of the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Lands, as well as ZAT. Greetings to all of you of the private sector. You're really private sector leaders and representatives from development agencies as well. Horticulture Development Council, Market Linkages Association. A very, very, very special warm welcome to those who are farmers who have made time to be here, ensuring that the conversation is actually anchored into the real issues that matter. Now, when I was a little girl, when I was 5 years old, I too wanted to be a farmer. Believe it or not, I loved animals at the time, and I still do. But I was truly inspired by my father. And he pointed out to me that we all of us rely on farmers 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? So farmers feed the world. They care for the land. And in both Zimbabwe and my home country, the Netherlands, they are a cornerstone of the economy, what we just discussed. Now, this is why, for the Dutch, agriculture is a critical pillar in our development support. Worldwide, but especially here in Zimbabwe. The embassy is working very, very closely with local and with Dutch partners and experts to boost agriculture exports and also strengthen responsible business conduct at the very, very same time. Our climate change projects, they're also focused on sustainable food production. And the climate is changing. The environment is changing. So all of us need to be prepared. Now, recently, Zimbabwe's horticultural exports have shown impressive growth. High value crops such as berries, citrus, and macadamia, they have driven earnings over $10 million annually. And exports to the Netherlands alone, and the Netherlands being the gateway to Europe, have actually doubled over the last 4 years. And that in itself is very, very telling. And there's more potential there. Headlines, though, are only telling part of the story. Beneath the surface lies a sector with far, far greater potential, particularly if we can improve the operating environment. And the good thing about being late was listening closely to Dr. Chakraborty. It's all about bringing in more smallholders as well to make use of the potential which is there. Farmers across crops like avocados, and avocados in the Netherlands are a great hit. The ones from Zimbabwe are in our supermarkets, selling big time at Albert Heijn supermarket. But you also have wonderful beans, bananas, and coffee. Now, recognizing this potential, we supported the Horticulture Development Council as a private sector-led, government-supported coordinating body to drive inclusive sector growth, incorporating, integrating smallholder farmers. Since its inception, HDC has been instrumental in aligning growers, policymakers, and partners around a shared vision for a thriving horticulture industry in Zimbabwe. Alongside HDC, the Market Linkage Association has emerged as a key convener of dialogue, and we're having that dialogue today. Also a key innovator by bringing together public and private sector actors to strengthen market access, promote traceability, and deepen farmer integration. Now, together, the two of them are co-hosting today's event with a very, very clear purpose. And it says from 9 to 1. So keep those objectives in mind that hopefully you will meet before the end of your session today, showcasing practical models that are already integrating smallholders into export horticulture. That's where the money is. To understand the drivers of recent export growth and what it will take to scale, and to generate actionable insights that can guide future support, especially by development partners, including the Embassy of the Netherlands. We're there for you. Now, we're very, very lucky to be joined by speakers who bring both deep technical insight and real field experience, ranging from creating aggregation models, traceability systems, meeting quality standards, and providing export logistics. Export logistics is also a very important part of the puzzle. Now, with these examples and your insights and experiences, we hope to shine a light on what is working and where investments can be made to catalyze significant change. This is more than just a meeting to tick a box. It's a moment to align around a shared ambition, a more competitive, inclusive, and sustainable horticulture sector, grounded in strong institutions, enabled by clear policies, and powered by partnerships. It's an all hands on deck moment. And it starts with the operating environment, which still remains challenging. And as you heard from the previous speaker, Dr. Chakraborty, the Ministry of Finance is on it, right?
Absolutely.
Now, farmers, agri-investors, and exporters in general remain concerned with both the complicated business setup and registration processes, but also currency controls and retention thresholds that affect already tight margins. And I know you would want to go faster. I'm convinced and I'm aware. And I also agree that implementation is still a challenge, but I know that the Ministry of Finance is on it. Enabling infrastructure, especially a strong cold chain system, is also lacking, and investment is needed there. However, for Zimbabwe, the biggest catalyst for change will be the resolution of the land tenure issue that has been a barrier to local and international investment for decades, ensuring a clear and consistent land tenure policy can unlock billions of dollars of investment, transforming agriculture in Zimbabwe. And it's another thing that the government, Ministry of Lands, is currently working on. For the private sector, there's a growing mandate to meet responsible business conduct standards, protecting the environment, taking care of communities, and providing fair working conditions. They're both a moral and business imperative. Certainly in the EU, regulations on imports are increasingly aligned with the desire among EU shoppers to reduce the negative impacts of their purchases on people and planet. Thus, as an embassy, we're supporting the uptake of improved practices towards widespread global gap, fair trade, and organic certification in Zimbabwe. And I'm not going to repeat the pineapple story from Chipinge, but it's still there, it's working, it's fabulous. In closing, and I really appreciate you hanging on for a few minutes, I extend my very, very warm thanks to each of you for being with us today, and especially to our hosts and contributors for their exemplary leadership. What we sow today, we will reap tomorrow. So let us have candid conversations in this room, like we just had, and plant the seeds of sustainability and inclusiveness. Let us make sure that future generations of farmers inherit fertile ground, not just for crops, but for opportunity and dignity for all the people of Zimbabwe. So Tatenda, Maita Basta, Siyabonga.
Thanks to our previous two speakers. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this important workshop on scaling up smallholder horticulture and unlocking the potential of our farmers. Today, we're here to take stock of the progress made and to look ahead at how we can shape the next phase of support in the ecosystem. Now, allow me a moment just to reintroduce HTC, just in case anyone wandered into the wrong conference room. The HTC was established in 2019 by an interim board, and by 2020 our constitution was adopted, formally mandating HTC to coordinate the industry in recognition of the great potential of horticulture to drive inclusive growth. We are the apex organization representing and actively driving the development of, the business of, and the export growth of the horticulture sector. We are an official partner to the country's agriculture policy framework, which cites us as the representative organization for horticulture farmers. On the other hand, we are a horticulture farmer founded and driven with a structure that includes various horticulture subsector commodities, large and small, old and new. Our hub and spoke model, which has now been adopted by the government, is our mechanism to ensure broad participation and inclusive growth in horticulture. I'm proud to say that the foundation and fundamental milestones achieved so far gives us a solid footing in an institutional framework with a farmer-driven apex that has the requisite legitimacy, credibility, and gravitas. Our work in policy, investment promotion, export promotion, and policy advocacy continues to carve a great future for the sector, the farmers, and the Zimbabwean economy. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our partners, the Dutch Embassy, for their great support. You have been true friends to Zimbabwean horticulture, standing with our farmers and helping drive many of the projects that have shaped our programming. We deeply appreciate you. We often say that we don't have a market problem, we have a production problem. The buyers are ready. It's up to us to supply consistently, competitively, and sustainably. That's the mission we are leading at HTC. However, the single biggest hindrance, and I'm sorry he's left the room, the single biggest hindrance to our scalability is the ease and cost of doing business, and the policy environment, which is still not attractive to investors both locally and internationally. The industry has ambitious targets, so working alongside organizations such as the Market Linkage Association, with their experience in fostering dialogue and building networks, helps to ensure a coordinated, private sector-led development of the industry. Today's workshop is another opportunity to work together, examine models that are working, and identify the barriers to increasing production that will meet these targets and where future programming could bridge the gap. So let's continue working together to grow our industry, one farmer at a time. Thank you.
My job's the easier one, and it is to welcome you all here to the Joint Market Linkages Association and HTC Forum, where we are looking at scaling smallholder horticulture, unlocking the potential. But before I leave kind of this platform, you should never give someone like me this platform. I just wanted to say two things about the Market Linkages Association and from myself as a development practitioner. A few years ago, the Ministry of Agriculture asked us to do an agriculture investment prospectus. Their positioning was we go out there to trade shows, etc., and we really kind of don't have the words or the evidence base in terms of positioning ourselves as Zimbabwe. The task was put on my desk and I sat there and I said, what do? I need to make sure I have the evidence base. I need to make sure I have the right information. So the person I turned to was Michael. And Michael has really been a great friend, but it wasn't just about Michael, but it was Michael who represented the Market Linkages Association. And what he said to me is, there's a story in horticulture. Go speak to Linda, who is heading the HDC.
I went and Linda opened her doors. And one of the key things that I learned from Linda, which I then directly put in helping the ministry with their agriculture investment prospectus, was she said, look, horticulture is very globally competitive. Go do the math. And I said, okay, fine. Our exports were globally competitive. Go do the math. I then went there, and this was in 2021. I've since been keeping up to date with looking at these figures in terms of what we call our revealed comparative advantage. We found that one of our key horticultural crops, coffee, was at 2.4. Now you need to be at 1 to have a comparative advantage. And the higher the number, the more competitive and the more advantage you have. Our flowers were high. Our citrus was also high in terms of our global comparative advantage. Then I went on to look at our global exports, comparing them, the Africa region and globally. And what stood out then, which is what we put with the government and what we also put in the World Bank country private sector diagnostic report, was our blueberries were top, macadamia, tea, sugar, citrus, all kind of falling in the horticulture. But Linda went on to say, you need to dig a little bit further, look at a little bit on blueberries. And we found that as we looked deeper, and she said, no, we really not only do we have a comparative advantage, a competitive advantage, we have a counter seasonality advantage. So then I went further to look at the evidence. And our counter seasonality advantage when we supply blueberries to Europe and North America, I make sure I wrote this down so I have it there, is that we have the first mover window price advantage between that August to October period for the UK and EU. Morocco comes in October, April. Peru comes in October. So that really says something about horticultural produce, and it ties in with what our ambassador has also said in her speech. The next thing was I was looking, well, okay, what about Europe? Where else do we have this counter seasonality first mover advantage to South Africa, which is our big brother, right? And we looked at it and it said April to July. We have the counter seasonality advantage to Malaysia, Singapore, China, and Hong Kong, where South Africa has that seasonality advantage between October and January. But what I'm just saying is that this information, that this evidence-based really came from the Market Linkages Association networking me with other private sectors and with the HDC. And this was really quite pivotal. So I just want to thank you for all those who are part of the Market Linkages Association, who are paying their dues to the Market Linkages Association, because this is the type of information that really elevates and pushes forward what we are trying to do in agriculture for our farmers and along the value chain. Thank you and welcome again.
Thank you, Esther. Right, let's just have a quick look at the program. And next up will be HDC to tell us something about what they've been doing, looking at some trends, national targets, hub and spoke model. And then Technoserve. Is Technoserve in the room? Thank you. Is it Sharon?
Yes.
Okay, nice to meet you. And then after that, we've got my friend Charlene, who is contracting farmers to export to Netherlands. Yes. And then Clarence. Is Clarence here? Hi, Clarence.
Hi.
And then we'll go into a bit of a panel discussion. So I think let's we're a little bit behind in our program.
It's good then. Thank you so much.
Good.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
How much time do I have? Cut me short.
Minutes.
Try and be as fast as I can. If you can split the video while I set up.
Thank you.
Good morning again, colleagues. Just have the video going.
Oh, I've got the
Zimbabwe's horticultural sector is flourishing, driven by the unified efforts of the Horticultural Development Council, HDC. Established in 2020, the HDC is a non-profit, membership-based organization dedicated to transforming Zimbabwe's horticultural industry. HDC's mission focuses on improving business efficiency and competitiveness for a wide range of export producers, including nuts, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. We represent and coordinate the interests of export horticultural producers across the country, acting as a strong advocate for their growth and transformation. With support from the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development, we lobby for favorable policies, better infrastructure, and investment opportunities to boost production. Our efforts have resulted in significant growth. Export volumes of high-value crops like blueberries, avocados, and citrus continue to rise, creating jobs, attracting foreign currency, and contributing to Zimbabwe's economic growth. HDC collaborates with key associations representing various crops and producers, ensuring that the majority of horticultural growers in Zimbabwe are represented. This includes groups like the Citrus Growers Association, Avocado Growers Association, Berry Growers Association, and more. We also support new exporters in reaching their goals. Our vision extends beyond large producers. Through outgrower schemes and smallholder development programs, we are committed to spreading the benefits of horticulture to communities nationwide. Together, we are revitalizing Zimbabwe's horticultural industry, delivering economic and social progress, and ensuring a bright future for horticulture in Zimbabwe.
I think Linda already mentioned some of the members we represent, and we have a lot of existing farmers, existing exporters, and new farmers that are what we call producer members. And then people like Sandy in the room, Vida, Ben, I see over there, they're what we call trade members. So they're anybody who supplies services or products into the horticultural space. So as the video alluded to, we've got all these sectors that are represented under HDC. So we've institutionalized all of that experience under one roof, as it were. So what we are essentially doing, and our connection to the government or to the national development strategy, is drawn directly from the Horticultural Recovery and Growth Plan. So you'll see those 6 components there are where we as HDC then derive our strategic imperatives. So all 8 of those are what we're using as an organization to drive the work that we do. And this is 2021 to 25, and then extending beyond into 2030 as we go towards NDS2 and so on. So we've refined some of these imperatives a little bit, and I'll just run through them very quickly. The first one being on strengthening institutional arrangements. That's more about the HDC and our ability to grow and deliver on our mandate. The second one on policy and regulatory environment, speaking through the ease of doing business and our work around convincing the government and other stakeholders to make sure that we have a conducive investment environment. Number three is on expanding production base. We've touched on that. Prof spoke about how we can grow our ability to, expand our farmer growth potential through outgrow schemes and various other initiatives. The fourth one on infrastructure and logistics, very important as well. When we're looking at cold chain facilities, solar power farms, and logistics being our route to market. So that's another avenue that we work on as HTC. Number five, finance and investment. We can't do anything without money. So obviously that's a very, very important one. It touches on green finance, development finance, impact finance, all those other aspects as well. So we work very closely with commercial banks and other financial players in the industry. Number six, on increasing export market access. That speaks to market compliance and just making sure that we have all the necessary paperwork to make sure we can export our produce in and around the world. Sustainability, I know Chiedza mentioned something about climate smart agriculture and ESG metrics and all of that. It's more that we do as well. The eighth one is an important one on value addition, because I'm going to touch on that a bit later, because we also are focusing on a softer landing for new players in the export horticulture space. So being able to juice, jam, can, or some form of processing for produce makes it a lot easier to get into the formal market space. So we've categorized our horticultural crops into three main groups. So your annuals being kind of like a 6 to 12 month cycle, your perennials, your blueberries, passion fruit, and so on and so forth, your flowers, then obviously the longer term plantation crops, citrus, apples, and so on. And that's very important to know, because at the present moment, we don't have a lot of finance in the sector that caters to your perennial and plantation crop. Again, because of fears around 2030, again, because of all kinds of other reasons, there's only money that's available for 6 to maybe 18 months at best. So that's a bit of a challenge when we want to get investment into these more longer term crops. So I wish Prof was still in the room, because this next slide talks about the 2.5 billion target. I was going to say to him that this is where we can get that money for our arrears. We're looking at being able to have a $2.5 billion annual turnover with the right amount of investment. A $790 million investment will help us to generate that amount every single year. This is a government target, which was 1 billion initially. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think we're one of the only industries that has gone and taken a target and broken it down into bite-sized chunks that can be attractive enough to an investor to look at and say, well, I'm interested in citrus. Where can I expand? Where can I invest? And all those hectareages, or all the hectarage rather, that is listed there, the targets that we've earmarked are all realistic, and we know the farmers where they are in the country, how we can access and support them. So this is something we do share a lot when we get out into these investment forums and platforms, to show that there is potential and this is what it looks like. So I think the three important figures there are obviously the 2.5 billion, the investment amount, and then of course the employment number, almost 600,000 jobs, which can be generated by us being able to expand to that hectarage. So I'll touch on that a bit later as well. But yeah, maybe you can keep it up for this one. It's gone. Okay, so as you're still taking pictures, just moving on to the next slide on the export trends. I was asked to talk about the growth and that kind of thing in Zimbabwe. So I don't want to focus too much on, Tony, next slide. I don't want to focus too much on how the graph is looking and the individual commodities listed there. What I think is of importance is to show how that graph is moving. There's slight increases here and there. That's from 2017 going to 2023. What happens is obviously in the years in COVID, 2020 and 21, there will be a slight dip, obviously, because of the pandemic. But as you can see, the graph does not look like it's going up. So when we're talking about growth, it's to a certain extent a bit of a false positive, because what you're seeing is plantations or plantings from 2017 and 18 coming into production. So those citrus orchards are getting to full maturity, and we're now harvesting from them and exporting. So the numbers look like they are going up, which indeed is true. But what you're then having is that number plateauing and then starting to dip. So because we're not having any new plantings. And this is again linked to us not investing enough. So what would need to happen is every year from 2017, would have needed to continue planting and if not expanding on those existing orchards. So just to look at what's side by side with Peru, that's blueberries in Peru. So you can see their graph is looking very different from us. And it's good we talked about blueberries just now. The Peruvian model, I think the last few bars there are looking at from 2017 to 2023. They had phenomenal growth in their blueberry sector, as I'm sure a lot of you are aware. They're upwards of almost 20,000 hectares. From my previous slide in Zimbabwe, we're only on 600. Our target is to get to 1,500. But in doing so, it could potentially make us the 5th largest supplier, as it were, in the world. If we just get to 1,500, whereas Peru is sitting on 20,000, but we're still competing just as much as Peru in the European markets because we have good tasting blueberries and we know that our product is highly sought after. So just to give you a side by side, what we want our graph to look like on the left is to be going upwards and not dipping. Next slide, please. So where are our challenges? I think Prof. Chakravarti touched on it quite a bit, but just a few others. I mean, the taxation, the levies and so on. We can go back and forth about that, but that's not what I'm here to touch on. But the access to finance is a critical one. Being able to get money into the system at affordable interest rates, long tenure beyond 2030, especially when we're looking at the plantation and perennial crops. Our power supply, it's another massive challenge that we have at the moment in Zimbabwe. Our water, it's the same kind of thing. The citrus orchards you saw in that video, talking to some of the farmers, each citrus tree needs 400 liters of water per plant per week. It's phenomenal. And on average, I think you've got about between 200 and 500 plants per hectare. So if you're saying 500 plants by the 400 liters, it's almost 200,000 liters that you need on one hectare. So it's phenomenal numbers when it comes to the amount of water we need. So what our job is to do as HTC is to try and coordinate and have better conversations with all these different players to see how best we can unlock some of these challenges and solve that. So on the next slide, we then look at our hub and spoke model, which has been talked about extensively. It is tried and tested. It is something that's not new to a lot of countries. And what that looks like in the following slide is a circular, Tony, thanks, a round wheel where you have the hub in the middle, which is your aggregator, your processor, your exporter, whatever you want to call them. But basically being able to either export on their own, but at the same time being able to take on more produce from others and be able to then supply various markets, not only internationally, but also on locally. Where you then have the spokes in that wheel, the capacity building, the extension services, the compliance. This is all some of the work that comes through the hub, and HTC facilitates a lot of work to be done around that. The financial services, again, getting money into that space. So this is where we see a good inclusive model that allows for smallholders to get into the formal horticulture space. So what we've been able to achieve with the hub and spoke in the last few years is getting the endorsement #1 from the Ministry of Lands as a working model that allows us to incorporate these smallholders into the formal space. The second one is having operational hubs, which I'll show you soon in the next slide. And then obviously the expansion roadmap, which I touched on a bit earlier with that table that has all the different sectors. So this is what we've been able to do with the hub and spoke, and what that looks like then in terms of actual hubs that we can talk about who are a success and have been able to do phenomenal things. We'll start off with the Monty's vegetables, for example, or the Monty's processors. As some of you are aware, you've probably seen this product in the shelves and in the shops. The machine, the Tetra Pak machine making this or making these boxes and packaging this is the first of its kind in Africa. Not in Zimbabwe, not in Southern Africa, in the whole continent. It is here in Zimbabwe, and that's being produced here locally. So this presents an opportunity for smallholder farmers to grow the beans, Michigan pea, that feeds into this factory. The tomatoes that go into the tomato puree, and they're now going into the other two product lines there, which is a tomato and onion mixing box, and as well as sweet corn. So for the smallholder farmer who has a hectare or two, they've got something they can grow throughout the year and be able to supply into Monty's, with a guaranteed offtake. The next one, Kuminda and Takura. Clarence is in the room, so I'm not even going to bother talking about some of the phenomenal work he's doing. With the sugar snap and Manj 2 peas exporting into the UK, Takura is another pack house based in Shurugwi. There's a lot of activity happening there. So another crop that smallholders can consider growing and are doing very successfully with Clarence and a few other players as well. The next one is on coffee. Someone spoke about coffee as well just now. I think it was Esther. And very exciting work happening in the Eastern Highlands. TechnoServe, I think, is here as well. They're going to talk about the work happening there. We're getting good prices through Nespresso. And although our coffee volumes are very low, that presents an opportunity for us to be able to package our product differently and make it a niche product that goes into the market for a certain amount of time in the year. And for the smallholder growers out in the Eastern Highlands, this is very viable for them, but it's a plantation crop at the same time. So obviously there can be some challenges around accessing finance for that, but that is a good example of what a hub and spoke would look like for smallholders to feed or to grow and feed into the coffee mill in Mutare. The last one is on citrus. We've got several others, but I just wanted to focus on these four for now. The sable, not to be mistaken with sable chemicals, the sable chickens, we've now diversified and partnered with Dodd Hill to create a joint venture that allows them to have smaller farmers around them growing citrus in 50-hectare blocks that feed into the Dodd Hill packhouse, and then that produce is then exported around the world. What's interesting about that is they only have 3 or 4 farmers at the moment, but those 3 or 4 farmers represent 150 hectares between them. So what you see as a hub and spoke, and people think that maybe it needs to have thousands of farmers. Yes, you have that example with the Manch 2 peas or the coffee, but a hub and spoke for citrus looks very different. Those 3 farmers make up that 150 hectares, but that is all produce that's going through and still being exported. So it's not to say that hub and spoke is a one size fits all. There are various models, but the bottom line is that you have to have a functional central aggregation unit or central point where all that produce can be graded, sorted, packed, and then shipped off. So let's tie it all together. Our key takeaways. HTC is the key mandated organizer, or the mandated coordinator for horticultural growth. We have a production challenge, not a market challenge. I think we could sell our produce 10 times over. We know that Zimbabwean produce is well sought after. I don't think we need to worry about going to trade shows and standing there saying we've got citrus and apples to sell. What we need to do is get money into the sector and make sure that we increase our volumes to be able to satisfy those markets. The hub and spoke models have been successful. We've got several models that we've touched on just briefly, but there's so many more others that we can highlight. The elephant in the room, the policy uncertainty. Of course, there's a lot of work being done in that space, so I wouldn't want to shoot all of that down. But what we need to do is create a secure investment environment to allow for money to flow in and back out as loans are repaid and so on and so forth. So it goes without saying that we have significant untapped potential. Unfortunately, I hate using the word potential because we keep using it over and over again, and sometimes we never get to actually realize it. But look, it is what we have to go on for now. But I think with the work that we're doing collectively, I think we can actually reach there. And as I conclude, I just want to give a bit of an illustration on what that looks like. I was talking to one of our members a few weeks ago, and he kept talking about how farming is in our DNA as Zimbabweans. And what he meant by that was we have an inherent ability to farm, to grow well. It's something that's been happening for generations. And that goes from the small farmer who just has to pick a certain amount of produce, or someone who's doing high-tech systems through their farm. Regardless of what they're doing, we have a good DNA in us as Zimbabweans. Another farmer then said to me, yes, the DNA is a good thing, but then the other aspect is that we have an export mentality. And what he meant by that is that we, as Zimbabweans, understand how to navigate not only a economy with ups and downs, but also the ability to get, as a landlocked country, to get our produce into trucks, cold chain, down to the border, crossing over, and getting it onto a ship or onto a plane and sending it all around the world. So that export mentality, when you take that and combine it with an inherent ability to grow well in our farming DNA, it gives you what you see in that picture there. Now, I'm not an expert, but when I quickly chat GPT'd how old a citrus tree can grow to be, what it told me was anything between 20 and about 40 years with good maintenance. Those trees are 66 years old. And that's not in South Africa, that's not in Spain, that's here in Zimbabwe. At some of our growers down in Beitbridge, those trees are old, and not only are they still producing fruit, but that fruit is still being exported. We were there earlier this year, so I can attest V11. I was there and I did see those orchards. So it's not a picture that was taken from you know, the internet, but it's phenomenal and fascinating to see these trees grow so big that the branches are now touching and almost fusing into each other. So that's the expertise. That's an example of the quality of the produce that we can do here in Zimbabwe. So with that being said, I think I'll stop for now. It's my last slide. I think I've made it within my allotted time. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you, everybody. I think that the Q&A later.
So that was a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm not going to do questions right now. We can save our questions for the panel discussion when we'll have everybody up here at the end. I think we're now going to have a look at what Technoserve is doing. So Sharon, you come. Just if you need the bathroom, it's out the door to the right, and you'll see a bit of a corridor. That's the gents. Where's the ladies?
It's changed. It's now this side.
Is it that side?
Yes.
Oh, can you say where it is? Then?
That's just.
Okay, Tony says it's like this. You can give a.
Oh, on WhatsApp? On to Michael. Are you able to just forward it quickly on WhatsApp?
So we had a change in speaker from Technoserve. William was originally coming, and I think he then tasked Sharon with not much notice. So we're so, Sharon, should we
No, it's fine. It's fine. We can send it because we are broadcasting to an online audience.
So maybe should we change the order of speakers?
Yeah, another thing is which then I.
That's good. Okay. So, Charlene, would you be able to come up? Great, thank you. So Charlene Matonzi has been working in the smallholder farmer space for some time, but not only that, she's also an accomplished farmer in her own right, doing, I think, grains and cattle. Right?
Yes, feed the cattle.
Right. Over to you, Charlene.
Good morning to you all. My name is Charlene. I come from Kadoma. I'm a farmer. I have a degree in animal science and agriculture from the University of Zimbabwe, and I live and work on our family farm in Kadoma. On the road by the Kadoma toll gate, you can never miss us. I always say to my friends, you can't stop by because we're on the highway. The Kadoma toll gate is actually
Can I afford it?
in the middle of our farm. If you've seen flower fields by the Kadoma toll gate and you've seen zinnias driving past, that's us. So our company name is called Amaluwarina. We're privately very small owned company. It's two of us, my mentor and co-founder, Doug Alexander. He is a farmer with over 40 years experience in farming. And how we started this project is due to Doug Alexander. So next slide, please, Tony. So basically, Doug used to grow flower seeds for Holland on a commercial basis in the late 80s and 90s. And after land reform, we came up with this project where we took something that was done commercially and we took it to Inkai first of all. And we started with 40 growers and same concept, same market. The market being Him Zayden. It's one of the world's main producers of OPV flower seeds. And we took that into the rural areas where our rural farmers grow on very small pieces of land, from 0.25 to half a hectare. And we, we grow flower seeds for them. Next slide, please. So basically, as I was just explaining how it worked, we started from Doug. So in 2011 is when we started to grow in Gokwe and in Kai. 2011, we started with 40 growers. Not sure if this is going to work, if the concept is going to work. And how we, to date, to 2025, the season, we have 900 plus growers growing for us. And the beauty of growing this, it's rain-fed. That's why we grow it with rural farmers. So it's a complementary crop. They grow their cash crops and then we come in with the flower crops. When I say flower seeds, it's mainly 4 varieties: Cosmos, Marigold, Zinnias, and Morning Glory. So we get our seed, foundational seed from Holland. And what we're essentially doing is seed multiplication. So a farmer will get 250 grams to 500 grams of seed. And they, obviously, different farmers, with different agricultural practices, will produce from an average of 30 kgs to even up to 100 kgs. And within each variety, the prices are different. So Cosmos, $2.50 a kg, US dollars. Marigolds, $4, and Zinnias, $3. The farmer has to grow the seed and clean the seed. And then we, as Amaluarina, give them the training on how to grow. And then we also support them during the season. Next slide, please, Tony, for the season. So basically, if you can just see what I've just written there, planting period is early December when the rains come. And full bloom between March and April, May, full bloom, depending on the variety. Flowers normally start to dry end of May, June, the seeds start to dry. It's a bit labor intensive. They do have to pick, so we don't like to give them too much because we're dealing with smallholder farmers in the rural areas. So labor is family, mother, father, kids. So what we noticed in the earlier years when we gave them too much seed, lots of seed was lost to the ground because they couldn't pick it all. So we've actually made it smaller, and we've noticed that even with the smaller amounts of seed given, they're still producing high amounts of kgs. So they're taking care of it and picking up what would have been lost to the ground. So how we do it with 1,000 farmers, being a small company, is we group our farmers into groups according to geographical areas. And each group is led by a group leader that has been nominated within the community. So this is farmer-based, it's a farmer-based, farmer-led project. So the group leaders have about 30 to 50 farmers for growers under them, and they monitor and evaluate their fellow farmers. The group leader has to be a farmer themselves. And so the reason why we have to have groups is, I mentioned the 4 varieties, but within those 4 varieties, we have sub-varieties. So you have, for example, Marigold Tornema, Marigold Sparky, Marigold Crackerjack. And it's essential that we are seed growers. So we can't have those varieties mixing because we still have to make sure that we produce pure seed back to the market. So it is a bit of a challenge within the rural areas because you might have families living 50 to 60 k's apart, but they're families. So some people think I could take a cup of seed to my aunt 60 k's down. So we've really, really stressed contamination and not sharing seed as a big major thing. To know that they I think over the years, we've been doing this for 15 years, that they understand that we are seed growers and we have to keep our seed clean and no cross-contamination. So that's a big thing, why we have to group our farmers into groups. Seed cleaning is also a major part of it, because in the end, we are multiplying the seed. So the farmers know what they're getting before they start. So as I said, Cosmos $2.50. So in the contract, the farmer knows that from this, if I produce 100 kgs, I'm going to get $2.50 times 100 kgs, including purity and germination. That's where the bit of a trick is, because it's seed. It has to germinate and it has to be pure. So the seed is tested and then the farmer is paid after those percentages. It was a bit of a challenge initially to educate the rural farmer on that. They did think that we were not being honest about it, but they've understood that it's seed and it has to be pure and it has to germinate. So they've understood that. The problem, and I think the most challenge is it's a very long turnaround because we are exporting to Holland. And so like right now, we've just been currently packing our containers for the seed to go to in the ship by Vira, and then the payment only comes late October, beginning of November. So think of it planting from December to November, it takes a very long time. I think the reason why our program has been a success, we haven't like gone out and recruited people. The farmers have come to us. It's because we've been honest and we pay. So it's something that we are sometimes a bit shocked by, that we have more and more growers coming to us every year, but that's how we've got to 900 plus growers. Next slide, please. So I think I've explained most of this. So I just wanted to say, so just to talk about what we've been doing, how we've injected. So in this year, our best production result was 30 tons that we managed to produce seed for. And we injected 67,000 US dollars into the communities of Nkai and Gokwe. Per farmer, when I first started this, per farmer, when you're paying out 60, you're paying out 50, you're paying out 100. I didn't think it was going to work because as a commercial farmer myself, I'm thinking, what's $60? What's $100? I didn't think the impact worked, but they kept asking and they kept growing and they kept wanting us. And I'm seeing the impact in terms of when you see it inject into a community, households have changed. They're building more like from mud huts to like little flats. Some households have managed to equip themselves with little solar boreholes just by this money. So I stopped trying to calculate and to understand, but I just know that by injecting a large amount of money into a community, you can see there's a change. I always like to call it restoring economic dignity. And I can see that over the years that we've seen a change in Nkai and Gokwe South where we work in. This year we had a target, our market wanted 22,000. We managed to produce 16,688 kgs, 75% of our target. From that, we haven't finished with our germination and purity tests, but we're looking at about injecting 40,000. So we haven't quite got back to our best year of 2022. But what we did do though is in 2023, we introduced another market, which was sunflower seed. So with the sunflower seed, we give the farmers same concept, using the same kind of concept that we use with our flower seeds. Within the groups, we've given each farmer 5 kgs of seed to grow 1 hectare of sunflowers. And we found a market that does that processes sunflower oil. And we managed to deliver to that market 124,000 kgs. And so that we managed to pay out 43,000. The reason why we also introduced sunflower seed is that long turnaround. For that farmer to wait from December to November for payments. With the sunflower, we started to buy the sunflower in May. So farmers got money in May, and then they're also going to get money in October. So we're still looking for other markets, but we also are very aware of not trying to overwhelm our group of farmers. Because, as I said, it's the labor's minimum, but that's kind of what we've accomplished. Next. So just, I'm sure on the Q&A you can ask me, but this is just like a kind of what's been happening, Cosmos, Zinnia, Marigolds, how much a farmer can yield per hectare. I will share this obviously with people so they can understand the figures more, but as I said, it's viable. And the farmers coming back to us and wanting to grow with us shows it's viable. So that's probably the slide. I'm not going to say much about it. Next slide. I think the reason why Amaluvarino works is because we're community-led. Farmers are part of the process. They are the ones that evaluate. They're the ones that monitor. These rural farmers are the ones that lead this program. It's not led from me in Kadoma, it's led by them. I ask them for information. If a new farmer wants to be recruited, they have to pass certain rules within the group leader and the farmers within the group for them to be allowed into the group. I always say, I don't live in this rural area. I don't know if this farmer is a good farmer or not. You know each other. So it's very much farmer led. And that's probably why it works. Trust. It's a very difficult thing. I'm sure we started in 2011. Will we come back? Will we pay the money that we say we on the contract? And I think over the years, we've shown that we have done that and the farmers do get paid at the end of the year. So that's probably why we're still here and still operating, which sometimes I get a bit shocked by, but I'm proud to say that it's very much due to the farmers and not due to our efforts, because we are a two-man team, just Doug and me, and 23 group leaders that helped run 1,000 farmers. Just learning and looking forward, being a small company, limited funding to upscale. We were very lucky to meet Michael in 2016, and they helped us actually take this project from Nkai to Gokwe. And they equipped us with bicycles and cell phones and stuff that we can't do as a small private owned like company that we operate, because we do operate our own farm. But it's been like 9 years. We need to now modernize to motorbikes. When we started, a group leader would have 10 to 5 farmers, and that he could easily walk around, go on his bicycle. Now one group leader is looking after 50, 60, 70 farmers. So we are looking into that of how we can equip all our leaders. As I said, we've got 23, so that's like 23,000 for each person to have a motorbike. 2024, the drought, the climate, it affected us also. The beauty of flower seeds is they are pretty drought tolerant. So I think what we always say is the farmer does produce, even in a bad season. So we had a targeted yield of 20,000 kgs. We only produced 5,000. So we didn't walk away with zero in 2024 when the rains were not there. But it was still crop failure, because as you can see by that percentages, we didn't even meet the halfway mark. The challenge is we do grow for him, Zayden. That's the only company we grow for. If we do, we haven't actually overproduced, but if we do overproduce by 20%, they will pay up to 20% maximum. So it's a bit, it limits us in expanding to maybe 2,000 farmers. So that's why we're looking at other crops like sunflower, sesame seed, and all those other things. So other farmers that do want to join the program, we can still give out flower seeds, but we don't go over the max where we disappoint our market that's been with us for over 16 years. Sunflower seed, side marketing. You give the farmer the seed. Obviously, we've got no control of that. The beauty of flower seeds is there's no one else to sell to but us. But with other crops that we introduce, the market is free. And the farmers are loyal, but when you want money, and if we as Amadori don't give the money to them on time, they will sell. And that affects, like, we've given you the seed, we've given you the inputs, but you've sold it to someone else. So that's a challenge that we need to find out how to mitigate against that. Poor storage facilities, as I said, you saw, we pick seeds in June. We farmers pick from June, July, August, and all that time, the seed is with the farmer. So we're looking at placing containers in every little village, the shipping containers. So that's another expense that we're looking to see how we can do that. So if we can place the shipping containers, we don't have things like, oh, the rats ate my seed. That time period of trying to get because it doesn't make sense for us to go in and pick up 100 kgs. We try to get in when everyone's done cleaning. And so it takes 3 months. So that's something that we should looking into, of how we can put in better facilities of storing the seed whilst waiting for everyone to finish cleaning. Obviously, we talked about this, the 70-30%. In the contract, it says I'm being paid $3 US. The government of Zimbabwe is giving you 70% US dollars and 30% ZiG. Farmers in the rural areas do not want to hear about ZiG. Even paying it's something. I was very lucky to have Zim Trade come through, and they came to see our project, and they kind of helped us explain that we're not stealing their money. So what we do is we also don't want mobile money. We tried that, and we've tried the banking. They want cash, hard cash. So it's something that's a risk to us, but we do that. We pack the money and we go out and pay them their hard cash. And so what we do is we convert the ZiG to US. So they get the 30% black market back into US, and luckily they've understood that. So for instance, $3 for Cosmos will come to do $2.78 with a bit of maths playing, of playing around. And I think that's probably what makes it work, because they appreciate their money in full US. They don't want to hear about policy. They don't want to hear about what's happening. They just want their money. And we've understood that. As we talked about equipping our group leaders with tools, better cell phones. Unfortunately, these cell phones these days, you buy a cell phone for $100 in 2 years' time, it's gone. Cell phones are very good in terms of it helps with monitoring, evaluation, picture taking. It's flowers, so we need to see the color of the seed. So, for example, I talked about our varieties. As we've grown, we've been like this year we had 20 varieties that we grew. So within zinnias, we had 6 varieties alone. So the color, the uniformity, all that, and that helps us with not having to go out all the time to go and visit 1,000 farmers. But getting our group leaders to send that kind of information also helps us to monitor, evaluate, and to help with roguing, and to make sure that we maintain that quality for our market. I talked about strengthening internal systems, obviously with getting better motorbikes, as I talked about, and cell phones. Diversifying and introducing more crops. We've done sunflower this year, 2026. We just had a meeting. We're going to try introduce sesame seed and in Kai, another drought tolerant crop. We'll see how that goes. And then what we did 2 years ago is the company gave us winter seeds. Winter seeds needs irrigation. So there's about 40 to 50 farmers that have their own private solar boreholes that we do give the winter project to, but it'd be nice if we could give it to not just 30 to 40, but let's go to 100 to 50, more and more. So that's also double income with the flower seeds. So that's a challenge that we're looking into. And then that's where we're at. Next. And this is who we are. As I said, we exist due to Nkai and Bokwe farmers. And him, Zayden, obviously through Martin Singer, who's a production director. And the nice thing about the company is they do come to Zimbabwe every year in April to look at the flowers, interact with the farmers. So we are very lucky and very privileged to be working with such a good company. Next slide. Thank you.
We'll hold the questions until a bit later, but Charlene's a great example of a contract farming or hub and spoke model, which is not very expensive. It's very appropriate. And when you were talking about the factors that make your project successful, I can sum it up all in one word, and that's passion. Yeah, because Charlene and Doug, they have such passion for the communities which they work for. Charlene goes out in this rickety old vehicle, not quite knowing whether she's going to make it back or not. She overnights in the residence of somebody in the area. She takes along a bag of mealie meal, and they have supper together. So I think it's a really good project. Thank you, Charlene. Right, Sandra, are we ready?
Sharon.
No, that's a bad mistake. Okay. So Sharon is here instead of William Zirebwa, who can't be here, but he is online. So if we need any help from William, we can give him a shout. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon. I'm the HR at TechnoSafe, so I'm not in my comfort zone. Um, TechnoSafe is two models, which is the Takura and Tamuka. Tamuka is the Takura is a okay. Takura is the. Let me talk about our vision. Our vision is TechnoSafe. We are a sustainable world where all people in low-income communities have an opportunity to prosper. And our mission is to fight poverty and helping people build regenerative farms, businesses, markets, and increase income. And we also have a 10-year goal, which we intend to transform business in low-income communities to dramatically reduce poverty while having a positive impact on climate change and nature. Over the next 10 years, millions of TechnoSafe clients will earn 3 billion more in sustainable incomes. Okay. TechnoSafe facilitates the building of regenerative farms, businesses, and markets. And we do this by empowering small-scale farmers and entrepreneurs with skills and knowledge and the need to earn more money. We also connect these businesses with markets and suppliers, finance, and we help to sustain them by progress by improving their business environment and for the small scale producers and enterprises. So I'll not do much on this. This is just the indicator, global indicators for TechnoSafe. Tamuka is Tamuka is a TechnoSafe program which is in Midland, which is in which is in Manicaland, and it does coffee. What we do is coffee in Manicaland. So what we've done in Manicaland is sustainable revival of coffee origins. And we do this by partnering with Nespresso, the farmers, and Zimbabwe Coffee Mill. We are mainly active in Chimanimani, Wonde Valley, Chipinge, and Mutare. Our approach is based on sustainable training and application. So the training we do, we train our farmer trainers, which are our food soldiers, which will cascade the training to the farmers. This improves the quality of coffee. We make sure we have quality coffee, which the quality coffee also fetches more money. So in terms of implementation, we are assisted by HTC, Ministry of Agriculture, Zimbabwe Coffee Mill, and so. So moving on. So we have trained about 2,000 farmers, 42% are women. And we have delivered 68 tons, 34 tons exported to Nespresso in 2024, and 220,000 farmers. Sorry, for 220. 220,000 and done by 280 farmers. So all farmers have bank accounts, and more farmers intend to join the program. And there's need to scale up our funding so we can keep on assisting the farmers in their coffee production. So Takura started as an agriculture value chains program. That's the way that is missing. So Takura mainly is the value chains program, which is horticulture, poultry, and beef. So we operate in Shurubi. Then we target smallholder farmers, mainly the irrigation schemes, and we provide financial input and financial input and on credit which means we give them the inputs, and then when they sell, we cover our money. All farmers are contracted by Takura. We offer a guaranteed price irrespective of the market fluctuations. Then the program is implemented by TechnoServe. Transitioned into Takura transitioned into a social enterprise. Social enterprise, which after TechnoServe leaves Shurubi, Takura will still remain, and then all TechnoServe employees will transition to Takura. They've since transitioned to Takura since 2024. Then Takura operates a pack house with a capacity of 50 tons of peas weekly. And then Takura is expecting directly in 2025 over and above supplying to Kumbinga. So this map just shows an area where our irrigation schemes are located and the areas where we have other like where we have poultry, cattle ranching, and where we also supply poultry, our market for poultry, which is Fairville, and Linkfield, where we also used to, which was our off-taker for horticulture as well. So opportunities, market-driven, scaled up year-round production. It's a 1 billion annual revenue. Then power partners, we have Zimtrade, AMA, the Parents Ministry, then financial institutions and developing partners as well. Then development financing, Anglo-American was financing all these projects in Shimubi. So we intend to also seek other funding opportunities so that this can sustain Takura. Demand-driven opportunities to scale up and expand, other opportunities that technical assistance, renewable energy, pack house optimization, the strengthening Takura boards. Our partner with TechnoServe built on team experience. We've learned a lot, experienced a lot in our implementation. We've also maintained strong relationships with the stakeholders and international markets. Then production, extension, pack house management, and freight experience. So this is William's contact details. If you need to know more about TechnoServe or Takura, you contact William on these details. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon. We've actually got William online. I think he's going to come in.
He's online.
He's going to come in with a few words now.
William can come.
Yeah. I don't need screens.
I'll just tell him.
Okay, William, would you like to come? Oh, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm in the field, but I could follow clearly, and apologies, I had to put Sharon on the firing line as HR, but she presented well. I just wanted to add just a few things about both Takura as well as Tamuka. These are the two programs that we have been implementing. Both programs are market-driven. When I say market-driven, it means we are working from the market, and from the requirements of the market, then we get back, we look at the gaps, the constraints that we face, and then from that, then we work with farmers in order to make sure that we address those constraints, and also at the same time, we produce and provide and deliver the quality that the market will be expecting. So we have got quite a number of market engagements activities that we are involved in to ensure that we offer the best, the competitive price for the farmers. And the other thing which is also important when we dwell on Tamuka, which is the coffee program, is that as TechnoServe, we engaged Nespresso That was about 8 years ago, and they started funding the project when coffee was actually on its knees in Zimbabwe. And based on the funding and also on the negotiations with them, we're able to convince not only the farmers, the smallholder farmers, but also large estates like Freck Valley and Taganda to get back into coffee production. And the model is the hub and spoke model that HDC always talks about. So it's a practical implementation of the hub and spoke model, whereby we have got Zimbabwe Coffee Mill acting as the hub, and we also have those anger companies like Taganda, which are big estates, as well as Freck Valley. But we have got an assured off-taker, that is Nespresso. And the good thing about Nespresso and its funding is that even though they support the farmers still have the option to sell to whatever market they would like to sell to. So they are not really committed 100% to Nespresso. If they find a better option, they will still be able to sell to those markets. That's why at times the farmers can sell to GMB, they can sell to Keynes Foods and other markets as well. But as of now, Nespresso's price still remains highly competitive. So we are quite happy. We are quite excited about it because we revived coffee when coffee was actually being stamped out. So we are excited about that. And we've got new farmers who are joining the coffee project. We started with about 300 and now we are at 2,000 farmers who are active in coffee production. And the good thing is that it also talks to sustainability. We talk about AAA. This is the way our approach to helping farmers, and AAA is based on the Rainforest Alliance standard. So we are quite excited about the opportunities which are there, but for coffee to get back to its original numbers, we still need more players, we still need more investment for that to happen. But the good thing is it's happening, the transformation is there, and we also have smallholder farmers who are part of a business that is driven by the market. And as for Takura, Takura is exporting. We started this as well when we looked at opportunities for farmers who were not able to find or secure a market, and these farmers were organized in irrigation schemes in Shurugwi. And we engaged Ungi Mine, which is part or was part of Anglo-American, is now called Valterra. And that's where I am, the background that you are seeing, it's a mine. So they funded the Takura program, and we started working on horticulture. That's what I'm talking about for today. And we engaged exporters who are based here in Zimbabwe. And we are working through Linkfield as well as Kuminda, who are our partners, as we export, working with smallholder farmers. So we had that as one of our channels towards the markets. But as we grew and developed with the farmers, we are also now exporting directly, so that at least we can get a better return for our farmers. But we are not giving up on the relationships with the local exporters. But what we are doing is to expand our production. We are very ambitious. We want to have a sales revenue of over 2 million. That's the drive that we have over the next 5 years. And we see it happening. We started with peas, but we have added passion fruit. We are adding sweet corn. We are adding chilies, and many more crops to come, so that the farmers can have a year-round supply. But as an example, a snippet, one farmer who is growing 0.05 hectares can have a net revenue of about $1,000. 0.05 hectares. So that's how lucrative it is for smallholder farmers. If they can have that within 3 months, and you have 4 crops or 4 cycles, it means they can actually have about 4,000 more income from their small areas that they are operating in. And we don't operate in a nutshell, just like, or in isolation, just like the coffee program. We are working with HDC. You know, we can do policy alone. We can do advocacy alone. So their support is really, really appreciated. We work with the Ministry of Agriculture because we work with the public. We work with farmers. It's difficult for you to actually managed to do that, and we are very glad because of that. That's what I wanted to add.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Julian. Of his experience, he wears two hats. One is Minder, and the other one is Fairmark. So I think we're going to be hearing a little bit about person.
This is the microphone.
Sorry. Online, yeah. So the videos, am I putting all the videos?
You can play lead the first, because I'll just do the introduction.
All right, sure. I'll be doing the intro.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Clarence Mwale. I'm the CEO of the Cominda Fairmark Group. What we do is very similar to the two previous presenters. I'm not going to waste too much time to explain the same thing that they've already explained. I'm going to play a couple of videos which are farmer testimonials that show exactly how the farmers feel about what we're doing with them. And I'll explain a little bit how we've managed to achieve that. So we can play the video, the first video.
Just a second. Sorry.
Yes. Richard.
Standing is better.
Okay.
If you don't mind.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Stop.
My name is Linda Matenga. I'm a young entrepreneur farmer in Marondera. So I'm listening at this farm. All I wanted to do when I got this land, I wanted to do maize because I grew up seeing my grandmother, my mom doing maize. As a new farmer, I knew I can do 1 hectare of maize. But when Mr. Mwale and his team, they advertised a workshop in Harare. So after the meeting, I approached him and he told me of doing peas farming. I wasn't sure that am I going to win or not, because I was used to do maize and the ordinary farming. I thought only white men or only men are able to do that. I didn't know anything about peas, and especially peas for export. I didn't know about that. So Cominda is helping me with her technical assistance and inputs. So right now, I'm doing peas and fine beans. So due to Cominda's help, my last harvest, I did 1 hectare and harvested 12 tons. 9 tons were exportable. Then I got paid $27,000 US. So next season, I'm upscaling to 5 hectares and I'm going to get 45 tons and I'm aiming to have $1 million US. So in the next season, I'm planning to have 3 hectares of blueberries, and they're going to give me another $1 million. So I'm going to be a multi-millionaire. When I started to do farming here, the land was, we didn't have anything. So I had to buy drip irrigations, drill boreholes, and build some structures here. So I had to build a pack house, and my pack house, I have a cold room inside, so that when we harvest from the farm, we take straight my produce to the cold room. As a young woman, as a farmer, it is very difficult to get into farming because sometimes you don't have the resources, and we like having our long nails and what. So it's hard to do zemadaka uri mumunda. So as a young lady, I know what it is if you're not working or if you're not doing anything in the society. People, they take advantage of you. So I decided to employ young women who are surrounding this area so that they don't have time to go and do unnecessary things outside there.
Ndinge ndakagara ndisingashandi pekugara painetsa nokuti ndinge ndisingashandi asi kuyo kwakaita medhemu wedu pano achitanga kurima ndakaona kubatsirikana kwakanyanyisa ndakushanda ndichikwanisa kuriritira mhuri yangu zvekudya zvekupfeka nekuenda kuchikoro chakange wakagara asi ndinonzwa kufara ndekuti zvinezvi ndakuwanawo mari inondikwanisa kuchengeta mhuri yangu ndinoiriritira zvainoda ndokwanisa kuzviitirawo panguva yawanoda.
At this farm I am employing more than 50 to 60 people, especially women. They are more than men. With the knowledge I'm getting from Kuminda, I am transferring the knowledge to other young women and men for them to do what I am also doing. I'm encouraging every young farmer, whether male or female, to start doing a piece of land. Even if you have kumusha, you can even go and start doing that kumusha kwako. Due to my partnership with Kuminda, I'm expecting to grow bigger, and I'm expecting to have a big land, my own, which I'm going to own. Kuminda helped me a lot. Without their help, I was going to be an ordinary farmer. I was just going to do maize, only that.
Most of them are in clusters that have already been developed by organizations like the HTCs in trade. Takura is one of them. All these farmers are represented with through 81 organizations. We don't have, we're growing peas, mushroom sugar and peas everywhere around Zimbabwe. As far as along Umguza River in Matabeleland, in Nyamandlovu in Matabeleland, we didn't want to restrict ourselves to by distance, so we've just gone all out around Zimbabwe as long as it makes business sense for the farm. The expansion plan, we pack here in Harare or along Harare Drive in Pomona. Our expansion plan is to have satellite pack houses in provinces so we can be closer to the farmers rather than having one big warehouse in Harare. So that is when that starts going ahead, we will increase the number of farmers that we support. Most of our success has largely been due to the help of the diaspora. We all know that Zimbabwe is very strong diaspora presence. So because of that, the Zimbabwean small-scale farmer is very different from a Kenyan or a Tanzanian small-scale farmer, in the sense that you can see they can afford the minimum resources. They can afford to buy, or through their support, the diaspora support, they can put in a cold room. Most of them have small vehicles. That helps us because 60% of losses in fresh fruit and vegetable production takes place post-harvest due to lack of knowledge and lack of infrastructure. So as soon as these farmers harvest, we collect the produce in our refrigerated trucks, we bring to Pomona, we grade in a packhouse where we employ about 100 people. 95% of those are women. I'll show you a video of one of our employees and how they feel about working with us. And then we grade and we pack in the Kuminda box, in the Kuminda brand, and we export. Our exports are primarily into the EU and UK. This season, we have done 400 tons of peas, all grown by small-scale farmers. Our testimony is that we do work with a few commercial farms. The testimony or the finding is that small-scale farmers are very willing. They're very willing to learn. We have never had issues of quality. We've never had issues with residual levels. The farmers have been they've listened to everything that we have told them. We do find challenges here and there where we have to teach farmers some of the basic things that we like financial literacy, where we're not really experts. So we need assistance with things like that. But other than that, we support them through our other business called Fairmark with compliance, as I said, Global Gap certification, GRASP, and SMETA. And we ourselves have to be certified to Global Gap, BRC, and SMETA. So my presentation has been made very easy. This is not a new concept. It's been done in Zimbabwe over 100 years. It's been done through Selby Enterprises, which is where I got all my training. It's been done in Kondozi, in Mutare. It's been done at Horticultural in Shamba. So what we've done is we've just come in at a different time, and we're trying to do things a little bit differently, giving small-scale farmers the opportunity. Our small-scale farmers are very profitable, and just like the flowers of small farmers, they don't want anything to do with local currency. So that's one of the challenges. We have to find ourselves dealing with the 70%, 70-30 retention laws. And it helps that I also sit on the HTC board, so we are engaging with the government constantly to try and work around that. But as it stands, it is something that affects a little bit us as a company, although we try to shield the farmers that we work with. So that is basically what we do with the small-scale farmers. I don't think I can add too much. Mandla saw my speech, so you took all my words. I could have said more, but this is what we do. I'll show you another video of what we do for our own workers who work for us. So to access these markets, like Her Excellency, the ambassador said, we have to meet strict standards. And I think everyone now is very aware of Global Gap, which is good agricultural practices. So Global Gap is not only the minimum standard. You need to have Global Gap and the social standards together, which is SMETA. So we have gone past trying to preach the gospel of Global Gap. Everyone now knows what Global Gap is in Zimbabwe. A number of our growers are already certified. We are now concentrating more on the social responsibility, because the European market is looking to work with businesses that leave a footprint in people's lives. And I truly believe that through Kuminda, we're helping send thousands of kids to school. You will see in the next video what we do for our own workers and the hope that we have created around our own workers. And the last video will show another testimony from another farmer. With these few words, I submit. Thank you.
I'm on check.
So this is one of our farmers. This is this season. The first.
We used to do what we call, before Kuminda came, we used to do what we call gambling farming. Gambling farming is whereby one grows the crop and sends it to the local market, where the price is being controlled by people who doesn't even care that someone has put a lot of money on the ground to be able to produce that product. So when Kuminda came now, it changed everything. They now transform our farming into modern professional farming, whereby we grow crops and send it out for export. The market is stable. You know, we put money on the ground through Kuminda, and we send our produce and get good return for our product. So the introduction of Kuminda has come with major benefit to us.
So as Kuminda, we've managed to support this farm specifically by giving them a platform to access the export market. At the same time, we also offer them technical support. Part of the inputs they also use to produce the export crop. As smallholder farmers, usually most of the times are resource constrained. So we have a team of production, including agronomists and a pack house and the rest of the team. We help the grower when they're producing the crop and offering them our expertise.
Without Kuminda, we wouldn't have been where we are today, and all this success actually comes from Kuminda. If they were not there, yes, we might be successful, but not to this extent. Look, for these 2 hectares, we are creating employment for close to 60 people. So everyone surrounding this farm is happy by benefiting from this farm.
Madzimai akawanda ari kunzwa kufara nechiitiko chekuminda, kuuya kwakaita Kuminda, tichikwanisa kushanda panapa tese zvedu. Ukakwanisa kubata mari yako iwewe isina munhu anoitonga, unoita nayo zvaunoda, mhirizhonga inoita ishoma mumba. Saka chero mumba macho munogara mune mufaro, muchigara zvakanaka.
As women, we are part of the vulnerable group of the society. So I myself as a woman, together with women of this society, have been empowered through Kuminda. I am quite excited to see that these women are benefiting financially. And as they say, if you feed a woman, you also feed a household.
I want to say thank you to Kuminda for being with us, guiding us all the way from the ground to the market, for all the commitment and effort that they have put on our farm to be where we are today.
Ndine vana vatatu, mukomana mumwe chete, vasikana vaviri. Murume wangu akashayika 19 September 2022. Semudzimai akashayikirwa nemurume zvanga zvakundomira sekuti murume wangu ari mupenyu. Ndaiva munhu asingakwanisi kutenga kana soti kana madomasi. Ndaingoti ndipei mari. Zvinorwadza nekuti mwana mangwana achimuka anobvunza kuti maitodyei. Saka iwe kana usina pokubata zvinokunetsa kuti ndopiwa nani. Vana vangu kudai ndakanga ndaramba ndisingasevenzi vaizopedzisira vasaenda kuchikoro nekuti mari yangu isingakwani. Pandakatanga kushanda vana vangu vakandichodza kuti ndawana basa, vakafarira kuti pedyo ndinokwanisawo kubva kumba mangwana ndosiya ndavabikira kana kuvagezesa nekuti vachiri vadiki. Ndichidzokera kumba ndinokwanisa kusvikawo kunze kuchakachena ndosvika ndoonawo vana vangu. Vana vangu vakandiudza kuti mama, Mwari vakanaka, Mwari vanotiziva, hatisi nherera, Mwari wedu vanotiziva, nekuti zvamawana basa chirambai makashinga zvokuti chero mangwanani ndinogona kubatwa nehope zvakanyanya ndovanokwanisa kutondimudza kuti mama mukai muende kubasa, ende havai kuti ndirovhi. Pandopinda mushopu ndakapinda ndinotarisa zvinhu zvinodiwa nevana vangu kuti vana vangu vanoda izvi neizvi neizvi, ndokwanisa kuvatengera. Vairatidza kuenda kure neni chizhinji, asi iko zvinozvi ndivana vangu vanodzoka pedyo neni sekuti vaitarisa kuti dzimwe dzenguva ndichakumbira kwavari, asi nekushanda kwandava kuita vamwe vakuita vachiuya pedyo neni. Asi dai ndisina kuwana basa upenyu hwairamba hwakandiomera. Ndinoona sekuti ndakaramba ndichisevenza pano paKuminda upenyu hwangu hunondirerukira, kana kuti ndotozopedzisira ndatsvakawo pangu pokugara pano kuti apa ndipo pangu.
I'll ask some of the panelists to come up, or the previous presenters. So, Charlie, Sharon, we're going to give you a break. and Clarence, please. And who's coming from HDC? Mandla. He's taking my place.
Grace.
Delegation.
So the theme of this meeting today is, let me remind myself, scaling smallholder horticulture, unlocking the potential. And the idea really is to hear some lessons, some success stories of what is working, and then where to from now. I think we've heard of these great growth trajectory from HPC. Which of these models has potential to gain traction and go big so that we can get up to those rather large figures? So that's what we're going to discuss. So, yeah, that's true. And maybe I can just ask, you each heard your stories. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask each other? As the panel.
Collaborating with him.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, just his story, I think smallholder farmers can get integrated in Canada. So definitely be doing meetings to see what we could do for our area and also myself with the farmer. And towards my commitments. It's a thing to
Fantastic. Thank you, John.
I've given her our card, so she's ready to see it.
and also doing names.
Yes.
I would like to do that. Please.
Great. But I got some here. So what specific models or practices have proven successful? I think we've seen that already. How could we go about scaling? So Charlene, she told us about this homegrown contract farming community-led scheme, which I think is fairly unique. But is it something that we can? It can start somewhere else in the country, for example. What would you say about that?
Scaling up.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the numbers, 60% of the land is owned by small-scale farmers now. And statistics say that about 1.5 million farmers every year grow at minimum of 2 hectares each of produce of grain for sustenance. If we could look at, we need to look at finding ways to commercialize those farmers. And those numbers, we need to present ourselves as a huge number to the market, particularly the export market. One of the things that we are working towards under the HTC is to build a strong reputation for the brand Zimbabwe again, where when we go to negotiate for prices, we've got the volumes, we've got the numbers, and we're not begging, but we're dictating the prices, and we are going there with our best foot forward. So we cannot achieve that if we don't include small-scale farmers and small-scale production. I mean, the tobacco industry has proven that, although there are things associated with tobacco farming that we would like to take out of the equation. But if we took notes from the model, the tobacco model, and we replicated that for horticulture, for flowers, for citrus, for mushroom sugars and peas, I think it will be massive. I mean, this year already we've surpassed, we've broken the record for production of tobacco as a country. And we could, in my own words, we could channel that into better products and not bad habits. Smoking.
Just to add on that, I think 60% of the land is in the rural area, but I think what makes probably like what Clarence does and what we all do is it has to be community driven. The leaders and the drivers have to be from within that community. The buy-in has to come from within. It can't come from outside and then you wanted to expand. I think that was my key takeaway from what I've learned working in how we've expanded. It's because it becomes their project, their passion, and that fuels the growth. When you're coming in from outside, telling them what to do, if it's not things, I think you get a bit of resistance, and then they will, as long as the funding is there, they will go along with it. And as soon as the funding ends, they're also down tools. So if it's something that belongs to them, ownership, they will continue to do it. That's what I think. Helps lead and growth within smallholder farmers, specifically in the area.
Thank you, Shirley. Just as the last point, maybe, I think on scalability, I think one of the aspects that's important is a small scale farmer or a smallholder farmer doesn't always have to remain or won't always be a small farmer. If they choose to grow, they might become a hub of their own, export direct. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, that's what makes us have more power in the market. When we have a lot of those small players becoming medium-sized or large players, then we now are looking at that hectare and we're able to achieve it because the person who had 1 hectare today has 10 tomorrow and 50, the next year. So that's something that I think a lot of people think the smallholder will continue to keep feeding into a larger enterprise for the rest of their life. Some are happy to do it because they get paid and they don't have to worry about dealing with the compliance issues and all the rest of that key market or finding their own markets. But in some cases, someone says, I want to grow as an individual farmer to a certain point. That should be something that's also considered.
So we have a few donors in the room. What advice would you give to those wanting to make investments into horticulture? What could give them the biggest bang for their buck?
Well, first of all, yes, it has to be community driven. It also, whatever you invest in, whatever you grow in, it has to be market, based from the market, work from the market back to the farm. So a lot of the mistakes that we make is to grow a crop that doesn't have a market, which is what makes the export market stronger, because every year we go out to Europe and find markets, and then we come and we translate that into how many hectares of a specific product that we are going to grow. And we know that the market is available. The market is already there. The market is ready, and that the prices will not surprise you. So many times you see people parked along on the side of the road trying to sell a few bags of potatoes because they grew that without a business plan. So I'd suggest that whatever you invest in, there has to be a proper business plan that has a solid market. And we have that in our organization, so you can invest in us.
Yeah. Nice one. Tony, what do you think?
Okay, so I think I'll try to group them into two categories. So you said donors, so I'll say development partners in the donor community and then investors. So I think it's somewhat different. So on the one hand, your development partners and donors come from different programs, with different objectives, that kind of thing. And I think the key thing would be that whatever intervention they are bringing to the farmers, it needs to be consistent. So let's look at lessons learned. Let's look at what has worked in the past and what hasn't worked and not repeat the same mistakes. And let's have at least a uniform message going to the farmers. We don't want to confuse them. Today we're planting this way, tomorrow it's doing that way. And everyone has their own objectives, but there needs to be some way to coordinate that with doing something uniform across the different commodities, across the different parts of the country. Then on the financier or investment side, there's people basically who have money who want to come in and say, look, I want to either become an equity partner or I'm giving you a loan. That again needs a bit of support from the government in terms of how does the money move in and out, which is a simple question they want to know. What happens post 2030? And beyond that, from the farmer side, having a level of preparedness to absorb that money. So it's having the right accounting systems in place, corporate governance structures. A lot of these businesses are family run, family owned. And in some cases that doesn't fly with financiers. They want to know that there's an independent person on the board of those companies or those farms. So it's making sure you meet those requirements, but also then still being able to allow the money to move around.
Can I just comment on the issue of donors? I think it also has to make sense what the donors bring to the table. Over the last few years, we've seen that donors come with the 1 hectare budget story where they put one little solar panel and a few tanks, and they give that to a community that is 50,000 people. So to me, I look at that and I think, what are these people ever going to do with 1 hectare between 50,000 people? So my petition, I implore the people who come in with donor funds that when you look at it, please don't look at us as just people who are looking to sustain themselves, because that's, if at all it can, that's what a 1 hectare and a small borehole does in a community when you do that. Yes, we appreciate that, the people appreciate that, but most of the time it ends up benefiting only a few people. If you go to Spain in a region called Huelva, the government does the same thing, but they do it very differently. They'll give 800 hectares or 300 hectares, they invest in a blueberry project, they put all the infrastructure and assign a technical team to run that. And then the smallholder farmers of the community become shareholders. But what it does is it creates employment in that region, that rural region. It creates a proper business structure that can actually benefit people. If you do that, you see that the migration of young people from rural areas to try and find jobs in the cities where the jobs are not, there are no jobs anyway. There will be no need for that. So when donors come, unfortunately, they come with the idea of we're just looking to feed ourselves. We're not. We're looking to become commercial, go to the market and be competitive. So yes, we appreciate that, but we need more than just 1 small bore, 1 solar panel, and 1 hectare of irrigated land and a small fence. That's true.
Up to you've heard all the presentations. Are there any questions that you would like to ask the panel? Yes. Sorry, Tony will come to you with the mic. So Tony's the one who chooses who sings.
And he knows this. Thank you very much. Mike's more perhaps of a comment and addressing it to Charlene. So I'm so proud because I'm a Karuna girl. And Doug Alexander was also my musical word anchor when I started my research on the land review. And Doug's story is he had farms that were taken away, and it's really great to see that he has come back. And maybe I wanted you to speak a little bit into, I know the work you're doing in the community, but one of the things that used to be discussed some years ago was having an anchor, which is why I said, and it seems to me Doug was your anchor. Could you speak a little bit to how that relationship has worked? Because I think we still have a number of former inverted commercial farmers who could really spearhead and help young people and even middle-aged people who are now in farming and how to make that relationship work, because it seems like it's worked and you have really kind of in many ways had this multiplier effect of going to other areas that we have spoken about.
So just a bit of history. When I first came out of university is good. Like when you want to go from university into production, and you're not going to be a researcher or be a field officer, and you're trying to do your own things, you're very green. And so just a bit of background about Doug. Doug lost his farm in 2000 and we were neighbors. And my parents asked him to move on to our farm. We were farming effectively at that time. And I did agriculture in the family. So I automatically became the representation of our family and worked with Doug. So for as you say, white farmers or people that lost their land, they have all the information. They have knowledge that's just untapped into it. And coming in as a young Black Zimbabwean, you don't know the markets, you don't know the banking system. And for me, not knowing the experience and just the basics of farming. The first task that Doug gave me was to manage a group of women to clear some land. And that was my very first task, straight from university. I'm coming from university, I'm too smart for that. Like, why are you making me go out in the hot sun to go and open land with women? And I never finished the task. They made me cry. But that was a very important lesson he wanted me to learn, that the people are your production. The people, if you cannot manage the people, especially women in farming, if you own farms, and if you can't manage conflict or can't manage their harmony, you will not get a very simple task done. And he is my anchor, my mentor, and I am privileged that we farm together and we do business together. And just like the markets that we talked about, I wouldn't have known about him saving. That's a relationship that he had when he was a commercial farmer. He was growing for the Singer family in the 80s. The name Amaluba Rina. Rina is actually, it's Amaluba meaning flowers. Rina is an honor of a lady that taught Doug how to grow flowers from the Singer family. So this is years. So coming in from university, I wouldn't even know about that market. So I'm privileged just by knowing Doug, and not just Doug, but this he's opened the doors to a whole world of other landowners, people that have that experience that you need to tap into, that I'm privileged and I'm grateful. So yeah, that's what I can say. He's my anchor and my mentor.
Can I add? So exactly what you've said is, I have the same thing. Everything that we're doing with Comida, I learned it from Adam and Lynn. So we see it every day when we get in our business, when we get applications, even just for internship from the young people now. It's so sad because they don't have the training that I had. When I went into Selby Enterprises, Adam said to me, there are no sacred lambs here. I had a degree and I thought I was too smart for everything. And he taught me to be humble. So everything that we do now is because of that. And there's a lot of knowledge that we take for granted. Every single morning I phone Sean Philip and he's willing to help me. So there are a lot of people in the industry that sit with a whole lot of knowledge that we need to acknowledge. And these people are unsung heroes. So everything that we are doing now is the people, the young people now, I feel sorry for them because they will never get that kind of mentorship. This is what we're trying to do. I'm trying to do the same thing that Adam and Linda did for me when I was at Selby's, with the graduates that we get or the interns that we get at Comida. But you can see they're very different. They will not go to the field. They think life is TikTok. You can do a 5 minutes reel. Life is a 5 minutes reel or a 5 minutes TikTok video. But so these people, Doug, Adam, I've got another Linda that I work with every day. Linda Selby was the toughest person I've ever worked with. When she saw that I was busy Skyping, she told me to get my desk and put it in front of her desk in her office. And I was looking at her face to face every day for 6 months. I'll never forget that. But if you do that now, everything that is good in our organization that I now do is owed. I owe it to them. So it's a lot of knowledge that we take for granted.
Some really powerful testimonies coming up. Tony, who's next?
Thank you so much. Hello to Edisa, Association, and thanks to you, Clarence. One of the things that we are struggling with, Clarence, small farmers, and some of the testimonies we are working in their individual business, and we have so many education skills where we are fortunate to see some farmers. And I know whether you work with that kind of group of people who share common resources, the water, the land, how we can transform them to real commercial farmers. We talked about the diaspora community and then found out what kind of support they are providing and how, as members of the Marketplace Association, also benefit from that kind of investment. And Charlene, terms of your challenges, you said marketing is not a challenge. What is marketing is production, what is profit. Mostly what Clarence is saying is we are coming from a market-driven system. We start from the market, but yours is more a production issue.
I think we are also market driven. We wouldn't have the raw farmers that we have if we didn't have NZ. So it is market driven. So even with the sunflowers, we had to look for the oil producer who would take the sunflowers. Sunflowers is a crop that's been produced GMB by, but you know the challenges of GMB. So to convince the farmers to grow the sunflowers, we had to look for the market. So it is essentially market driven. You have to look for the market before you advertise a product. So I think it's definitely market driven. So
so first of all, the testimony about the diaspora, I'm not trying to suggest that there's a fund. There's a fund sitting there from the diaspora. What I was saying is that we have found it easier for us to do our work because of direct support that our farmers get from their family in the diaspora. So when you go to a farmer and the families have been sending money for years to support, now they've got a bigger reason, a better reason to send money, an investment. So they would rather buy a cold room or buy a refrigerated truck or contribute in seed or fertilizers or plant protection products to help their family rather than sending money for groceries at the end of each month. So that has helped our organization for us to do our work easier without needing to go and beg for money all the time. So I'm not suggesting that there's a fund. I am saying that the farmers themselves have a plan through the diaspora, through the big diaspora community that supports Zimbabwe at individual and at national level. If you listen to the budget, actually the diaspora, from the Minister of Finance, the diaspora contributes a huge amount of money into Zimbabwe, more than development partners. So that's all money being sent home. So sorry, there's no fund. The other thing you asked about the group of farmers who share resources. That is what we do. That is what the hub and spoke model is about. Takura is one group like that where they share resources. There are a lot of experts in this country. Sally Roberts is one of them, who have organized farmers, small-scale farmers who share resources for one purpose. So there are a lot of organizations. TechnoServe has done that. USAID, okay, not at this stage, but they've done that in the past. We're happy to work with you. We're happy to put our heads together and come up with something. We're doing that with CARE, with Comfort, with a whole lot of organizations. So that is actually the easiest thing to organize when you're farmers that are already organized in a scheme or a cooperative and they've shared resources. Hopefully there's not too much politics or there's no village head who's too powerful or that then just makes it a bit more complicated.
Thank you so much. Those things. So I'm very interested in coming from Christian page. And we are also at a point of analyzing our pilots project with these with so this is a really exciting information. And we are using a approach where we have just engaged more than 300 farmer groups, women-led, on the Harare, Togo, and River Corridor, which is great. So it's an opportunity. So in terms of my key asks, especially for these, I think you need around 8,000 to 10,000 in terms of initial capitalization into the production related business. And for smallholder farmers, it's really a challenge, especially for starters. Any arrangements in currently to actually pushing that farmer initial capitalization who can be partnering with other private sector actors, suppliers, suppliers, because I think that would assist in terms of the end challenges. And on the issue relating to scaling and unlocking, I think this is very critical and trendy. But for Zimbabwe, we are actually having repetitive problems. The one big one being the sources of doing business. And I think there's consensus to say we need to do something now, stimulate the competitiveness that's needed. I remember we had a national, multi-stakeholder consultation initiated by my brother under the Zimbabwe Agricultural Competitiveness Program, and then HPC, now HTC, in terms of assessing the cost of compliance from the agriculture side to other, agricultural sectors. There were lots of learnings which the government is starting to create now, but it was around 14 years ago. So I think we also need to frame ourselves towards being aggressive in terms of engaging the government to stimulate that competitive aspect, which continue affecting smallholder farmers. Because it also speaks to sustainability, where we may need to stimulate more investor confidence into the horticultural sector because of the cost, the high, entry cost, the high sustainability, cost elements that's needed to push in from the input supply side to the production, to primary, secondary application. I have also visited at one point and I've seen a lot of investment that's into that business, but we need more investor confidence to also support and sustain that business at all levels. I think that's another key element that's very important into this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just quickly, our model does support our farmers with inputs. What we do is when you come to us, our agronomists come to do a risk assessment analysis. They check your knowledge of the crop, they check the capacity, they check all the necessary things. When they come back to the office, they then give you a rating as either as a first-time grower or as an experienced grower. From that rating, it gives us an idea of how much support we can give you without putting ourselves under too much risk. So I must also tell you that we carry a lot of risk as a business. We have no support. Everything that you have seen in our organization, we're funded, it's self-funded. I'm a very optimistic person. I don't want to sit here and complain about the government and the economy and all the things that we go through every day. The real things, it's realistic. But we carry on, we soldier on. We do what we can do. We've got accounts with organizations like CIPRO. We've got a lot of support with from the Dutch embassy. We've got support from the UK embassy. We've got a lot of support from the EU delegation office. That helps us to sustain ourselves and to carry on. So I try to avoid complaining all the time. I think everyone is now tired of that. So we just carry on with what resources we have. We will make it. We are doing it.
Thank you. I come from an academia background where we churn out those interns. And I think them being paid is about 2K below what you expect. I value your inputs and your comments with respect to the quality of our products. We must recognize as stakeholders that we take back the feedback that you've given us in terms of the quality of our products. Our curriculum is closed for this, and back then we used to I think actually for a 3-year program for about 2 months. Now we do have our students going on for about 8 months. Actually, because our whole their marketability when they finally graduate. So my question is, having read your models, I love the spoken that you presented. How best can you accommodate our new graduates who now take a 4-year program with the 8 months attachment? How best can they fit into models that you're in? Thank you.
Okay, so I must give you some bit of credit because we do employ people. Two of our best agronomists, young women, came through the University of Zimbabwe. Last year we had an intern who was from Africa University, and she did the attachment with us for a whole year. And when she left, we actually missed her. We had a void in our organization. So there is still good education. There are still other kids who have the right attitude, who want to learn, who want to work hard. But you find that most of them have had to learn life lessons. Some of them are now single moms, which there's no problem with. And because of that, unless there's been an experience, they are just not as I was when I was in school. But having said that, we are open to having interns in our organization. We've got one right now, again from Africa University. Our 4 of our agronomists from MSU, all our team, except for me, studied in Zimbabwe. So we still have good education in Zimbabwe. We just need, I don't know what we need to do with the AMA 2K, but they need Linda Selby's in their lives. And I was fortunate to have that. We've got another Linda. Linda, we can send you some kids. Straighten up. So we're not, I'm not saying they're hopeless. I'm just saying it was harder for us than it seems for them. And we had a bigger drive than they seem to have now. Like I say, it's a different world. There's a lot of other different factors. Social media is big now. Everyone wants to be being in overnight, you know. And when you bring them in and they have to start from the bottom, they look at where you are and think, he sits in that top office, but he wants me to be in the packers. I used to grade peas when I had a degree. That's what Adam Selby said. That's what he demanded. And now in my business, you cannot hide. I know every trick. And like I say, that kind of, we need more organizations to be open to teaching kids. We do our fair part. We have 2 students every year that we train. Hopefully other organizations can do that. I mean, we are only a small organization helping smaller organizations. And we hope that all other organizations can be open to training and interning students as well. So it's not, they're not hopeless.
Horticulture in this case is quite special. Malta, you did highlight on the presentation that the biggest potential for the industry comes from production of natural products. And you mentioned 1.8 billion. I've followed it very deeply. And we've seen in the past 2 years, most of the horticulture commercial farmers moving to seedless marketing and organizations here today, currently focusing on peas, Amadua, is focusing on flowers, and Christian King is talking about peas as well as tapu. We used to be one of the biggest exporters of fresh produce in the Netherlands, for example, things that locally, daily corn, sweet corn, etc. What are we doing to get that market? What are they facing that are making us not look at those crops? What should we do as a city company? All the other industry stakeholders here today to make sure we get back into the market and assist the country get back to achieving company.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm talking too much. You need to stop me. So what my experience is that there's a time when we were not producing for, let's say, 20 years after the land redistribution program. A lot of the world did not stop. a lot of other countries came in and filled the void, the gaps that we had left. You now have Rwanda exporting. You now have Ethiopia. You have Kenya, who's our biggest competitor. You have South America. You have all these other countries that were there when we were not there. What we're trying to do now is get back into a market. And when you get back into that market, you need to prove yourself again. So when I was talking about, I said something about Brand Zimbabwe and what we're trying to do with the HTC. You now need to bring back, to earn that confidence back in the market. And also, we don't have the capacity, we don't have enough farmers for us to try too many lines already. So we want to go with peas and be the expert in peas. And then we introduce the next and the next and the next line of products. Right now, if we concentrate on the peas, we're doing well with the blueberries. We're doing well with the blueberries. The commercial farmers introduce blueberries as a summer crop to complement munch tree and sugar snaps. But fortunately, the blueberries now come into season at the same time, sometimes ahead of the peas. So naturally, they had to all migrate into the more profitable business, the more profitable investment. But that's not bad because it created a gap for companies like ours to come in with the small scale farmers to get into that void. So I think it's going to take us a few more years to reclaim claim back the position that we were back in the day when we supplied a whole lot of different lines into the European market. But we've got a lot of work to do to build that confidence again. So there are a lot of things that have changed, but I think we're doing well with the sugar snaps and the munch too. We're doing well with the blueberries. We're doing well with tobacco still, although our biggest market is China, but there's nothing wrong with China. I mean, we've just signed a protocol now with China for our blueberries to go straight into that market. I think we're on the right course. We just need to all pull in the same direction. So that is why I don't think it's anything to do with this, with the seed houses. I think you do a good job for us. You do a good job. We like your seed, but we need to take one step at a time and reintroduce ourselves into the market slowly.
I think maybe just to add to that, we need to walk before we can, run. So I think someone talked about the finance and, maybe I think you said 10,000 a hectare for you guys. So you can't just throw money at something and think it's just going to work, from nowhere. So the Monty's beans, for example, that needs between 700 US and 1,000 per hectare. So the entry point is maybe more manageable for a first-time farmer. That $700 or $1,000 can be sent by someone from the diaspora. That 1 hectare the farmer can do in a season, twice actually in a year, January to May and then again August to November. In the subsequent year, that person can use the process and say, well, Clarence, maybe I'm ready to try the peas. And now that $10,000 per hectare amount is not as much. And you keep scaling up as you go. I think the problem is it's that instant gratification that we're looking for, and we want to get back to those numbers and so on. It's not going to happen overnight. But the steps have started. We've started making the progress towards that. And the only thing is that we need to be coordinated. We can't be confusing farmers with different messages. So there's no shortage of things to grow. The guys in the Eastern Highlands would prefer to grow coffee or avocados because it grows better there. There's no point in growing maize there. Yes, it grows for a shorter time, but the coffee, they can grow and sell 1 bag and buy a ton of maize and still have 6 bags left for all the other expenses. So it's looking at all those different models. Where are the areas in the country that certain crops grow better than other parts of the country? And let's utilize all that expertise we have and, put forward, our best foot, as it were. So the last thing I wanted to touch on was the ability to create a track record, because I think that's something that's very important. Proof of concept is what people want to see. The vetting process that Clarence and his team obviously has to be done with people who not only have an interest in farming, but also have at least some idea of how to do it properly. So when you now get to the blueberry farmers where someone says you need 80 to 150,000 per hectare, it's a different ask. And a lot of people have had to self-finance for a lot of those activities. Some former tobacco growers have gone into blueberries using money from the tobacco to finance the initial crop. Where we're now lacking or where we're struggling is the expansion. You can't continue to self-finance indefinitely. So this is where your private equity firms and all the other financiers come in to help plug in and be able to get us to the next level. So it's a gradual process, but I think we are well on our way.
Okay, thank you so much. I am tempted, Michael, to go to ask about finance. I did ask Michael when I came to say, is there a section on finance? Because you see, I think most of what I know is about finance. I've been financing agriculture for many years. And I think I want to commend, I don't know whether this is the person, but I really want to commend HDC, Market Linkages, and you colleagues for the work that you are doing. And like you rightly say, it has been done before in this country. They have the spoke model. We knew it in the country. But I want to go back to the question on scaling. Because just as you knitting back the whole model, I think it's good to look also at the financing, because how it worked in the past. You know, there was long-term funding. But in the early 90s, you know, what happened was there was a lot of long-term funding that financed infrastructure development. So you had all your, I know in Triloni, you know, that was the Masoe area going to concession, Vurwi, and down to Tekutu. Yeah, you talked about the gear-ups there. We put infrastructure there in terms of dams, boreholes, pack houses. There were pack houses dotted around. That was through long-term funding. But then also the local banks came up to finance the working capital. And that bit was, this is why Trust Bank with Trust Export Agriculture, which was in partnership with private sector growers. And so I'm just looking at the modules. I'm saying you're doing great, but we also need to, if we can knit back the financing modules that were there. I know with our situation, we still have a challenge with long-term funding, but a lot could be done with local financing institutions and private sector. You see, foreign currency is gold. You heard what the government is talking about in terms of monocurrency and so forth. Maybe we could be living in an area where we maybe thoughts, but very soon we all realize that foreign currency is gold, and that's where to invest. And I'm sure working in partnership with local financial services, so the work that is being done is useful in terms of putting the story out there. Because in the past, the story was out there with the Horticultural Promotion Council and others. The story was very clear that this is where value is. So I'm sure with what you are doing, building up the story, I can see if we work well in terms of the partnerships with the local financial institutions. Hopefully, I can see also opening up in terms of the long-term funding. It's not much, but I think the alliance coming up. So I think we are on the right course. So like I said, this may not be a question, it's just a comment to say, as we revisit the models, we need to also to look at the financing puzzle and that jigsaw, how we can need it. There are models that worked before that we used in financing horticulture, and I'm sure they can still work.
Maybe if I just also add to that, my story, I think as I said, we're a two-man ship and we're self-financed. What I found as a young Black Zimbabwean being in the industry, the local finance is hard. You don't knock on the door, you don't have the history, you don't have your land doesn't have you're starting off from a land that has been derelict for 20 years. So a bank manager has an old system of working, has an old system of how it was done in the 80s and the 90s. And you are working in a new Zimbabwe where land distribution has happened. You don't have the records of how you've produced. So the questions that local finances ask, banks ask, aren't questions relatable to the way we farm now. So you find you're going to these institutes and locking the forms alone to answer a form, get sent an email. It's just, you essentially open the form, you're like, I straight away at the form, and then you just ignore the email because it's not practical. The questions they ask about are some things that you can't answer. You feel overwhelmed, and you don't, and no one follows up to say why. And I think banks 12% in 6 months to 12 months impossible to do.
Sorry to cut. I understand your frustration. I am also frustrated in them, but I just want to add that, we had agribusiness things. I work in agribusiness. We don't have that. So when you say they have old, no. The old bankers are not in the banks. You actually have new people. You actually have new bankers who have not been in agribusiness. So it's not like you have old people who have financed in the. If you had people who financed in the past, you would not be worried. You would actually be doing well because they understand these models. We financed them before, but you don't have that. So it's part of even the financial sector review, and that's needed. You no longer have your. And some of them, I can see them asking questions down there. These are bankers that have left the bank who used to finance agriculture. So this, I thought I should just contribute here.
And thank you.
And we've got William who wants to make a contribution. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just wanted to add on the financing. The most important thing to emphasize is that, yes, financing is required, but financing is not the core requirement that is needed when you want to start up, especially with regards to horticulture. You need the markets. We talked about the markets, but after the markets, you need the production. But for that production to be sustainable, you need the technical expertise, which is the gap that we are trying to cover. So it's very important. There's a lot of people. I've worked with farmers who have got money, and they think that because they've got the money, they can turn it around. But there are some disappointments. We've got cases, but we shall not mention names, of people who have got money, but they failed with their money. So technical expertise, especially when you want to export, it's not just about knowing the agronomy part, it's also understanding the compliance part with respect to the market requirements. It's understanding the SPS requirements. So there are quite a number of complex things that we have to appreciate and understand. And those people are very costly for you to actually manage them. That's why you see we have got models where you have got outgrowers, so that we have got agronomists who can reach to those farmers, and the cost is now spread, unlike each and every farm having an agronomist. But it's a cost that you need because it will assure not only your yield, but also it will also assure what the customer is expecting, especially with regards to pesticide regulations when you are exporting. So these are very important things. And also, tackling financing, especially for us who are working with smallholder farmers. It's very difficult for you to get that level of expertise and be able to pay for it 100% because the salaries are very competitive. So for us who are in the development world, we depend on funding, and that funding comes from different financiers. So there is sort of some blended financing that is there over and above your operational profits that you can reinvest into the business. But when you are working with 1,000 of farmers, you need to have support from a development organization for it to work until you get to a certain point or a certain level. I will give practical examples as for us. Like, for example, for Takura, for us to start the model, to kickstart the model, we had to depend on funding from Ungi Mine, which is part of what is now called Valterra or Anglo-American before. So they came in and we had funding to support the technical expertise that would be deployed in order to support the farmers. So you can never overlook that. It's very important. So what are we targeting here? We are targeting enterprises which are working in communities and they've got their social development programs, and funding from those social development programs can be targeted or channeled towards development. And that's the model that we are taking here. It's the same when you look at the coffee program, the Nespresso program. I talked about having an Nespresso as the private sector company who is the off-taker, but they are funding the technical expertise because they know the importance of the technical expertise. Because at the moment, we are now talking about even the Green Deal, we are talking about deforestation, we're talking about AAA, and Nespresso as a private company cannot do everything on its own. And we have got IFC, we have got the World Bank. Yes, IFC is the part of the World Bank. They are also part of the funding mechanism to ensure that we've got the right technical expertise. We've got the right experts who are supporting the farmers to operate at the highest level. So we've got these sustainable models that we have, and we cannot overlook or underestimate the importance of development communities, organizations such as IFC, organizations such as the World Bank, organizations such as FCDO. They are coming in European Union and playing a very significant part, especially when you are working with smallholder farmers. The cost per hectare of working with a smallholder farmer, supporting the smallholder farmer, is much higher than when you are working with a large commercial farm. So we have to take that into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thanks, William. Any response from the panel? No. Okay, I think we're gonna call it a wrap. We take one last question, but then I'm hoping that as we exit, there'll be finger snaps. Not having been out there, I can't nickel.
Thank you, Matt, for the colleagues and this probably kind of exchange. I'm sure most of you has been changed things in the same banks, in the same culture. And picking up from the position finance of the one to be changed. Last one, we are saying it's the next thing. Farmers, writers, and so looking for the presentations, I think the first one will be checked by wallet to say that sometimes the farmers they look at the market and wait 2-3 months to expect. So it's the next budget that again is that the failed in the market bring in and then take discount. So farmers will get maybe at least 10% of that is looking at while they wait for the so the first one. Then the second one, in terms of financing, we are putting forward to say you're going now against the forward contract leader. You confirm the price and funding. So based on that forward contract, this confirms and use to against that. Not all of it, but something that you can use when you from is other leader. So we see that is sort of lesson in the financial needs for the then the last one we are also doing is in those solutions like in saying you with one contract, what's the now that's been we need to penetrate. So we are bringing in, for example, enterprise arrangements, and at least at one contract, we can settle the seed, get your inputs, give up the market, and from the market, we can what they're doing in the range of proceeds. You walk into the horticulture and then concentrate on work for you. It cannot work, that's a fine solution.
Thank you, Ms. Okay, I think it's for me, it's just to say thank you, panelists. I'll just now ask Deputy Ambassador just to say a few words in closing. But thank you for the feedback. Thank you. Thank you. Let's take a photograph. Tony, If you don't mind coming down.
On that side.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. But that's what you get as deputy ambassador. You have to stay until the end. And then... But the benefit is that I do get to enjoy the finger food. No, but this was very insightful for myself. As I shared with all of you, I arrived in Zimbabwe 3 months ago. So this is an excellent introduction for me in terms of the sector, the trends, and the work the good work that is being done by all the various parties. So I'll keep it short. I just want to thank HTC, MLA, but also colleagues from the private sector, from government who are here, different associations. Really appreciated the valuable insights. The panel for me was extremely insightful as well. And we're happy to continue our support from the Dutch side. So do reach out to me. More than happy to share my business card with you guys as well, because I'd like to continue the support. Also, as a newcomer, as our ambassador is also leaving next month. So I'm more than happy to be here. And thank you all very much. This was very insightful. And yeah, hope to see you guys around. I won't keep longer than that, but thank you, Michael. Thank you, Linda, and all the others as well for hosting this today. Thank you.
The last events of this year for MLA, we had BASA, which is an SDC funded program. They just started their phase 2. They're going to tell us about their experience and lessons in phase 1. That will be November. And then we have a rather controversial character called Ian Scooms, who will be addressing us at our executive social in December. So enjoy the food. I believe it's there. Thank you very much.